Chapter 1771. In the vast sky of the universe, the frozen gales whistled. On the battlefield, corpses of ships, weapons were strewn across the battlefield. Countless broken limbs covered the entire extraterritorial battlefield. More than half of the coalition forces of the 5 holy sects of the Mizar star area, which had come aggressively, had been annihilated. Only 2 semi-god realm warriors, including divine sovereign Bing Jian, were left. When they fled, they were so embarrassed and panicked. They were no longer arrogant. What shocked everyone even more was that the elder of the Beihan sect, who was supervising the battle in the space city, didn't stop or interfere when Bing Jian gave the order to retreat. Instead, he was the first to leave with the space city. Apparently, he was also extremely terrified of Jiang Tian's strength. This meant that not only was Jiang Tian able to kill the 4 affiliated divine sects, but he was also able to intimidate the Beihan sect, the top divine sect in the Mizang planet region. Everyone was shocked at once. Countless people on Earth looked up at the light screens sent by Dharma artifacts, or used space telescopes or space detectors to witness this historic moment together. Even though they didn't know many details of the battle. But they knew that the 4 vassal immortal sects had been defeated, scared, and even finished. The 4 divine sects were defeated by Senior Kong Teichu just like that. Hanch Divine Prince, Chen Shiferi, Yuan Jiankong and Elder Pan Xing couldn't believe it. Hanch Divine Prince was Han Ming Zongzi's right-hand man, so he knew how powerful and terrifying those affiliated sects were. So, he was also the most shocked. And yet, the sect masters of the Boundless sect, the Beihuang sect and the Arctic sect had all died. Their grand elders and soul formation cultivators were all killed by Jiang Tian, leaving only the nascent soul heavenly lords alive. In the end, only divine lord Bing Jian, the sect master of the Snow God Hall, was still alive, but he was also severely injured. Jiang Tian's battle record was glorious, terrifying and peerless. It had never appeared in the history of the Kai Yang star field. It could be said that he was the first person since the beginning of time. It could be said that he was completely capable of suppressing the ancient times and dazzling the present. Even if they weren't completely wiped out, they were almost completely wiped out. Their vitality was greatly damaged, and they won't be able to make a comeback for the time being. Chen Shi's pretty face was filled with shock and surprise. She heaved a long sigh of relief. All the foreign cultivators watching the battle in the central hall of Tianqing School were speechless. Everyone knew that if Han Ming Zongzi stopped here and didn't take any further action, he would definitely be killed. When the 4 vassal sects were defeated, a new overlord of the universe had risen from this hot land, straight to the 9 heavens. Not only did he dominate the solar system and the Southgate star system, but he was also the ruler of the entire Milky Way galaxy. He even overshadowed the radiance of the Big Dipper star region. In time, he would be like the ancient sages on the ancient deity land and earth. He would dominate the universe, bathe in endless glory and shine for billions of miles. Earth had 2 powerful divine lords and was already worthy of being called a cultivation planet. And because of Jiang Tian and his wife, the Tianqing sect and the Jiang family would also become the most powerful and sacred sects and families in the Milky Way. Thousands of immortals would pay homage to them and they would dominate the star ocean. They would stand for thousands of years and not fall for 1,000,000 years. How fascinating! He raised a backward planet that had just recovered its spirit chi 5 years ago to the status of the most powerful cultivation planet in the star ocean with his own strength. That's what a real man should do. Yuan Jiankong and the others looked into the sky with admiration in their eyes, as if they were believers looking at their faith. They couldn't wait to be in his place. Even though they couldn't do it, they wanted to. Even Han Ming Zongzi can overshadow him. Hanch Shenxi's eyes were full of admiration as he enunciated each word clearly. He was Han Ming Zongzi's right-hand man back then, and he made the final decision, leaving the most colorful footnote for the battle. Many cultivators from other planets who had surrendered looked into the sky with trembling, shocked, and respectful eyes. There was a man enveloped in an endless aura. His chaotic energy filled 10 miles and he stood in the universe like a god. Everyone was in a state of panic. Jiang Tian had almost wiped out the 4 affiliated divine sects in less than an hour. Han Ming Zongzi was extremely talented and powerful. He had dominated the Star Ocean in the past few years and had colonized more than 100 planets with life. But if he had fought against the 4 affiliated divine sects alone, he wouldn't have won so easily. However, while Han Shenxi was happy, he was also a bit worried. As Han Ming Zongzi's right-hand man, not only did he know the terrifying power of the Beihan sect and the 4 affiliated divine sects, but he also had a deep understanding of the Beihan sect's power and influence. The 4 affiliated divine sects had been defeated, but the Beihan sect hadn't shown its real trump card yet. Besides, without mentioning anything else, the Rainbow Wings Fairy of the Banished Immortal Palace, one of the top sects in the Alcade Starfield, had already married Han Ming Zongzi. The two sects had formed an alliance that spanned across starfields. They were of the same breath and branch. Why hadn't they done anything since the beginning? Announce that Earth has won and the day ban has been lifted. Everyone can come out of their bunkers now. Keynes, the commander-in-chief of the Earth Defense Coalition Forces, said excitedly at the headquarters of the Black Eagle Federation. In the past few years, Earth had built a lot of defense arrays to defend against the invasion of the monsters and to deal with the changes on Earth. Once there was chaos, all the people on Earth would hide. We won. We won. When the news was spread, the entire Earth was in an uproar. Countless people came out of their bunkers and went to the streets, holding a large portrait of Jiang Tian and celebrating. He's a supreme divine lord given to us by God. God bless Earth. With the Taichu Divine Lord, Earth will be safe. Many people were so excited that they looked up to the sky and laughed heartily, hugging their heads and crying. Even more people were prostrating themselves in front of Jiang Tian's statue. It was as if they were facing a real god. As for the fans of the cultivators from other planets who had claimed that Jiang Tian would lose, they were like deflated balloons and couldn't be arrogant anymore. I'm afraid the Myth Alliance will punish us. With Jiang Taichu's cruel, overbearing, and vengeful personality, how could he spare us? There were rumors that the captain of the Wuxia Defender Alliance, Cheng Tian, had joined forces with the special intelligence agencies of various countries to investigate and capture the people who were trying to confuse the people's minds during the alien invasion. Many officials and media also supported this. For example, the global cultivation historian Peter Chen spoke publicly on the media, slamming the table and denouncing these people as traitors. They weren't as simple as fans, but had a far-reaching plan. They were defeatists who had lost their integrity and extremely selfish and sinister opportunists. They had not only betrayed Kong Taichu, but also betrayed the entire human race and Earth's civilization. They should be sentenced to death for crimes against humanity. There was also another piece of news that the Myth Alliance might take extreme measures. After the investigation was completed, the list of these traitors would be made public all over the world. Furthermore, anyone who killed the traitors would be deemed innocent and would be rewarded. Isn't that a rat crossing the street that everyone wants to kill? It's rumored that everyone has the right to kill him. It's too scary. For a moment, these fans were scared out of their wits. They never thought that the Myth Alliance's countermeasure would be so extreme and terrifying. Within an hour of the news being released, tens of thousands of people surrendered. After all, the officials could still convict them according to the severity and nature of the case through trial procedures. They wouldn't be sentenced to death. Once they fell into the hands of angry people, they would be torn to pieces and trampled into meat paste. While Earth was in a state of jubilation, in the battlefield outside the planet, Jiang Tian suddenly said to the Dharma artifact, "Keynes, you're too reckless. Ask everyone to go back to the bunkers. The war has just begun." At this moment, Jiang Tian already sensed an extremely strong aura coming from extremely far away. It was more than 500,000 kilometers away. However, Jiang Tian could clearly feel the terrifying energy. On one hand, it was because the demon god Jiang Tian's divine soul had reached the great accomplishment stage. His divine sense was as vast as the sea and as thin as a strand of hair. More importantly, the enemy's aura was strong and his laws were pure. He had far surpassed Bing Jian and the other strongest divine emperors. Is this the real power of the Beihan sect? Zhao Xueqing also stood up with a short blade. Her face was unprecedentedly serious as she looked into the depths of the universe. Chapter 1772. What? The war has just begun. There's more. Keynes was startled. Then he suddenly realized something and yelled, "Tell the world to take cover immediately. The war isn't over yet." Hanch Divine Prince looked at the black dots on the light screen that were getting bigger and bigger. He was terrified and said, "It's Yuntian Palace. Han Ming Divine Prince is here. No, there's also the Banished Deity Hall, the Feiyang sect and the Wuji sect. Qiji." The 4 black dots came at an extremely fast speed. At first, they were the size of soybeans, then they were the size of basketballs, and then they were the size of millstones. In the end, they filled the entire line of sight and occupied the entire light screen. It was as if the 4 suns were connected to the sky, shining with boundless radiance. Under its radiance, the many sky fortresses and warships were incomparably small, like chicken eggs under Mount Tai. When he saw Cloud Sky Palace approaching, Emperor Bing Jian stepped out from his bastion. His face was stricken with fear and he fell to his knees. "Master Han Ming," he said, his voice trembling, "I have failed my mission. I have failed my mission, and I deserve to die 1,000 deaths. But please show mercy, Zongzi. The enemy is simply too vicious. I've tried my best and there's nothing left to fight. If we keep fighting, we'll be wiped out." Divine Lord Ice Mirror, who used to be an unparalleled giant in the Sea of Stars, was truly terrified at the moment. He was cowering like a quail, as if he were a sinner facing a supreme emperor. He was humbling himself and begging for mercy. Trash. Soldiers are trained for 1,000 days to be used in a single moment. If it weren't for my protection, your sect would have been destroyed by the enemy. Without my support, what right does the Snow God Hall have to stand among the top 10 divine sects in the Mizang planet region? Tried your best? That sounds nice. Have you fought to the last person? Are you dead? An angry roar came out from the Yuntian Palace. It was Han Ming Zongzi. Suddenly, the Dharma laws in the universe trembled and the Great Path wailed, as if it were also frightened by Han Ming Zongzi's anger. Reporting to Zongzi, Kong Tichu is. Divine Lord Bing Jian's face turned pale. He was terrified to the extreme. He did not expect Han Ming Zongzi to be so angry and wanted to explain. Even Bing Futian was killed. You don't even want to avenge him. Instead, you run away without a fight. What use do I have for a piece of trash like you? Die. Han Ming Zongzi spoke again. His words were like the laws of heaven, and the endless Dharma mercilessly attacked. With a bang, the majestic divine body of Divine Lord Bing Jian, along with his divine treasures and divine body, shattered like paper. Zongzi, I'm sorry. Considering that I've been fighting in the Sea of Stars with Zongzi over the years and that I've been rather loyal to you, I'd like to ask Zongzi to show mercy and spare my remaining soul for me to live on. The entire Snow God Hall can be removed and be incorporated into the Beihan sect. Bing Jian's god soul was freed. It was half real and half illusory. While he was trying his best to escape, he was screaming and begging for mercy. His screams were like the cries of a trapped beast. They were extremely tragic and filled with fear and despair. They didn't sound like the voice of a human being. Loyal? Go to hell. Han Ming Zongzi was full of contempt and mockery. He did not show any mercy at all. With a gentle sweep of a massive amount of precepts, he crushed Bing Jian's divine soul like a towering wave crashing into a paper boat. This time, the sky went silent. Zongzi, please spare my life. We want to fight to the death, but we have to obey Divine Lord Bing Jian's order to retreat. I'm willing to die for you and fight until the last drop of my blood is gone. I'm willing to go to the universe battlefield with you, Zongzi, and destroy everything on Earth. Then, many nascent soul heavenly lords and golden core warriors of the 4 divine sects trembled and knelt on the ground. They were extremely anxious and wanted to show their loyalty to Han Ming Zongzi. You're too weak and cowardly. I don't need you anymore. Han Ming Zongzi snickered with disappointment and disdain. The heavenly cloud palace in space suddenly roared. Many of the talisman arrays emitted an endless amount of light. It was like a huge boulder crushing down on the army of the heavenly snow temple. In an instant, the ships were crushed like fragile eggs under the weight of Mount Tai. After an attack, the entire army of the snow god hall was destroyed and they were removed from the divine sects of the Star Ocean. Han Ming Zongzi gave you your lives. He certainly knows you're no match for Kong Teichu, but he wants you to exhaust his dharma power with your lives. You didn't do it, so that's a serious crime. We'll let the other 3 divine sects go for now. Bing Jian and the Snow God Hall are unforgivable. We'll kill all of them. With the Yuntian Palace in the lead, the 4 space cities continued to move toward Earth at a speed comparable to the speed of light. The arrogant and sarcastic words of the rainbow-winged fairy reverberated in the air for a long time, suppressing the souls of every cultivator, causing them to feel extreme fear. We wish Han Ming Zongzi a victory, kill Kong Teichu, wash Earth with blood and successfully colonize this planet region. Han Ming Zongzi is powerful and famous in the Star Ocean. He'll rule the Star Ocean for thousands of years. The remaining cultivators of the 3 divine sects stayed where they were. They looked at the broken limbs of the cultivators of the heavenly snow hall, the wreckage of the ships, and the weapons that were scattered all over the starry sky. Grief and sorrow welled up in their hearts. This was the cruel reality of the cultivation world. Although they were already godlike existences in the mortal world, and mortals were just ants in their eyes, in order to pursue a higher realm and status, they could only follow the strong to conquer the sea of stars and obtain more resources and opportunities. And in the eyes of a peerless overlord like Han Ming Zongzi, weren't they also ants? However, under the peerless pressure of the cold and ruthless Han Ming Zongzi, they did not dare to get angry, nor did they dare to refute or condemn him. Instead, the fear in their hearts became even stronger. They lay on the ground like ants, kowtowing like chickens pecking at rice. I should have expected this. Han Ming Zongzi has colonized hundreds of planets with life since he started conquering the Star Ocean. He has never been defeated like this. Especially on a backward planet that has just recovered its spirit chi. How can he bear it? In the main hall of Tianqing School, Han Xianxia shook his head and smiled wryly. He knew that Jiang Tian was really in danger this time. Han Xianxia, it's hard to say who will win this battle. Han Ming Zongzi has been cultivating around Earth for 2 years and has already connected with the grand Tao laws of this world. He's like a natural god and the ruler of this world. He seems to be an invader, but he actually has the home field advantage. Chen Shiferi thought about retreating. Her face turned pale and cold sweat flowed down. She said with her immortal will. Not only that, he's also asked for help. Gui Yufan, the Zongzi of the Banishing Deity Hall, ranked 32nd on the galaxy list in the past 1,000 years. He can destroy a planet like Earth before the recovery of spirit chi with one attack, and the wind thunder silver wings on his back are even more terrifying. Do you think Zongzi Qinyu of the Limitless sect and Zongzi Zhongshuan of the Feiyang sect will come? Chapter 1773. Yes. Golden light flashed in Han Xianxi's eyes as the Dharma laws around him rumbled. It was a natural reaction caused by an unstable Tao heart. He pondered for a while, then sighed and explained. He pondered for a while and said, "The tallest tree in the forest will be destroyed by the wind. Kong Teichu is too strong. Han Ming Zongzi's life goal is to kill geniuses and dominate the Star Ocean. The stronger the Tai Chu Senior is, the stronger Han Ming Zongzi's desire to kill him. I'm afraid he's already regarded Kong Teichu as his greatest enemy. Similarly, the stronger the resistance, the stronger the suppression. If the Tai Chu Divine Lord hadn't been so strong when facing the sect masters of the 4 divine sects, Han Ming might have only called his brother-in-law Gui Yufan. However, the strength displayed by the Grand Primordium Divine Lord is already on par with Han Ming's. He also understands the principle that a goshawk will do its best to catch a rabbit. Naturally, he will summon all the galaxy list prodigies in the solar system. Qin Yu, Zongzi of the Limitless sect, 28th on the galaxy list. Zhang Xian of the Feiyang sect, 25th on the galaxy list. Oh my god! Chen Shiferi couldn't hold on any longer. Her legs went soft and she couldn't even stand properly. She said in a trembling voice, "Let's run. We still have a spaceship with enough supplies to fly to the Sirius galaxy. From there, we can also hide our identities and find some of the heads of the snakes in the universe. Then we can cross the sea of stars and escape to the depths of the galaxy." She couldn't help but feel annoyed. She didn't think that Jiang Tian was weak. In fact, in her opinion, Jiang Tian's talent was enough to dominate the entire Big Dipper. She just didn't expect that Jiang Tian and Han Ming would be so extreme. Both of them were ambitious and overlord-level figures, and they were completely at odds with each other. They were resolute, and ruthless. Neither of them took a step back, nor were they the slightest bit weaker. It only took a dozen days for the battle to reach its climax. In fact, if Jiang Tian had planned slowly, it would only take 100 years, no, maybe 10 years for Jiang Tian to be able to wrestle with the entire Big Dipper invaders. Can you escape? If Han Ming Zongzi breaks through Senior Taichu's defense line, his fortress and city will be 10 times faster than our ship. A trace of sadness appeared on Han Che's handsome face, but before he could finish speaking. At this moment, a domineering voice reverberated in the void. "Kang Taichu, you deserve to die." That voice seemed to come from the depths of the universe, and it was filled with the vicissitudes and vastness of countless years. It was like the voice of a god. It was very light, but it was as if billions of meteors had struck the earth at the same time. It instantly shattered the firmament and tore apart the thousands of laws and great Tao that were as heavy as steel plates. It was as if a thunderclap had exploded and reverberated in the ears of everyone on Earth. At that moment, on Earth, countless people screamed and wailed. They couldn't bear it and prostrated themselves on the ground. Even Han Che and the cultivators from other planets who were guarding Tianqing School couldn't withstand it and were on the verge of collapsing. At this time, everyone felt that Han Ming Zongzi's strength was more than 10 times that of sect master Han Che and the others. He was simply the legendary omniscient, omnipotent, and meticulous. He had really integrated with the world as one, as if he was the chosen one who had been blessed by the heavens. "I deserve to die?" Jiang Tian chuckled as he stood on the battleship. With the stars in the sky as the background, he looked handsome, like a deity who had descended to the mortal world. In the next moment, Jiang Tian waved his sleeves, and the laws of nature vibrated. Terrifying gales erupted in the sky as he questioned coldly. He said coldly, "If you want to condemn someone, you can always find a pretext. I, Kang Taichu, have never offended you at all. You're the despicable one who instigated the Big Dipper monsters to wreak havoc on Earth and try to occupy it. More than 100,000 cultivators have died because of you. Are you the one who's guilty, or am I? Kang Taichu, you're too short-sighted." Han Ming Zongzi finally walked out of the Yuntian Palace. He was wearing a simple Taoist robe without any armor. His hair was loose and his feet were bare. He looked very handsome and confident. Instead of killing intent, he was like a flowing breeze and unruly clouds. With a trace of mockery, he looked arrogant as if he was looking at a country bumpkin. He said, "You were born on this planet after all. You're like a frog at the bottom of a well. You don't know the vastness of the world and the vastness of the star ocean. There are countless star systems in the Milky Way. Among them, there are at least 100 cultivation planet regions like the Big Dipper planet and countless civilizations. Different civilizations have been suspicious of each other and have been fighting for thousands of years. Planet regions have been destroyed in the war and billions of creatures have turned into dust. What I did was to stop the war with war and conquer all the planet regions. In the end, I unified the star ocean and became the master of the Milky Way. In this way, I could stop the war in the ultimate sense and achieve eternal peace. There would be no more wars, no more suffering, no more orphans and widows. The people and the worlds in the universe would enjoy a prosperous time. As for you, Jiang Taichu, you ruined my grand plan for 1,000 years for your own personal gain. You're unforgivable and deserve to die." "Ridiculous." Jiang Tian laughed and said mockingly, "That's a nice way to put it, but you really want to set up a monument for your chastity. Let me ask you, even if you want to achieve peace between the planet regions and unify the Milky Way, Why isn't it led by the human race on Earth? Why isn't it led by me, Kong Techu? You're just a native of a remote galaxy. You're as vulnerable as an ant. What right do you have to take on such a great responsibility? How can you convince the others? Hanming Zongzi sneered and shook his head as if he had heard the funniest joke in the world. What if I'm so overconfident that I'm willing to show up for the Star Ocean and become the master of the Star Ocean? Jiang Tian laughed and said, "Then I'll stomp you into meat paste, swallow your body and nascent soul and refine your divine soul. Let's see if you're still qualified." Hanming Zongzi stared at Jiang Tian and said viciously with an extremely strong murderous intent in his eyes, "Oh look, after all that talk, the one with the bigger fist will be the boss." Jiang Tian looked back at Zhao Xueqing and said, "Xianxia, remember, a cultivator only pursues the path of immortality. He doesn't care about the common people and is free and unfettered, as far as Jianghu. The emperor is good at both civil and martial arts, serving the country and the people. In fact, it's just a fight for power and profit. The two should have nothing to do with each other in the first place. Whoever dares to talk about serving the country and the people in the future will be the scum who cultivates but has the heart of the emperor. They'll be the jinx who provokes the calamity in broad daylight. They'll be the scum of the universe." Jiang Tian's words were said for Zhao Xueqing to hear, and even more for Han Ming to hear. "Kong Techu, how dare you?" And Han Ming, whose thoughts were poked, could not help but be furious in his heart. In the hearts of people like Han Ming, there was no real concern for the common people and the people in the world. They regarded themselves as gods in the human world and regarded human lives as ants. They could easily destroy clans, sects, countries, and planets. In the vast sea of stars, they were like locusts passing through, invading and colonizing everywhere, extracting endless resources to improve their cultivation. Once the spiritual energy and resources of the stars were exhausted, they would abandon them, allowing the stars to explode, the planets to fall, and billions of lives to perish. Jiang Tian retracted his gaze and flicked his sleeves, revealing a jade-like white fist. He waved it and said, "Han Ming, you're too arrogant. Isn't it just a competition of fists? How do you know that my fist is not as big as yours?" Chapter 1774. Kong Techu, you're too arrogant. Hanming Zongzi has already given you a chance. As long as you kneel down and surrender to us, Hanming Zongzi will show mercy and not punish the creatures on Earth for their crimes. Billions of creatures will be spared from suffering. Guiyufan, who was wearing standard armor, also walked out from the majestic space city of the banished immortal palace. His silver hair fluttered in the gales of the universe, and the pair of silver wings on his back circulated emptiness around him like ripples of water, interfering with the space. He stood proudly in the void, like an indomitable fiend god. He was majestic and domineering. He looked down at Jiang Tian and the entire earth indifferently and said in a cold voice, "But if you resist stubbornly, it will be equivalent to putting the earth into a land of extinction. After we kill you, we'll also wash the earth with blood and completely wipe out this planet. Is this Kong Techu? He's just SSO. However, he seems to have cultivated some chaotic chi, so his physique should be good. Instead, it can be used as food for us to advance our cultivation." Rainbow Wings Fairy walked out of the space city and looked at Jiang Tian curiously. Her chest was high, and her slender waist could be grasped with one's hand. She was graceful and graceful. Under the strong wind, her skirt fluttered, revealing a pair of long and beautiful legs with sparkling and translucent skin that seemed to be carved from fine jade. Her pretty face was full of contempt. She snorted and said, Kong Techu, my future husband and brother, one is at the peak of the divine transformation realm and the other is at the half-divine transformation realm. They are the peerless talents of the entire Beidou star region. They are listed on the Star River list and have been stunning for thousands of years. Kong Techu, no matter how strong you are, you're just a hero in a small place. You can't resist it. It's time for you to surrender. Besides, you were born on a backward planet and haven't been tempered by war. Your mind is unstable. How can you resist such terrifying power? The Rainbow-Winged Fairy and the others knew about Jiang Tian's flaw and weakness, which was that he truly loved the land under his feet, his ancestral home planet. As the saying went, don't shoot the rat for fear of breaking the vases. The safety of Earth had become his greatest fear. Even if he didn't surrender, it would still interfere with his Taoist heart. A divine level and a half-divine transformation realm cultivator are trying to threaten Kang Taechu and break through my defense line. You underestimate me. You don't know my strength at all. Jiang Tian looked contemptuous and shook his head. You're really arrogant. As soon as these words came out, Han Ming and Gui Yufan's expressions changed wildly. The rainbow-winged fairy glared at Jiang Tian coldly and shouted in a dignified manner, "Husband, big brother, this kid is too arrogant. We gave him face, but he doesn't want it. Just trample him to death and then destroy Earth." Kang Taechu, what if I join you? Another Zongzi walked out from the grand space city and sneered. Everyone on Earth stared at the light beam closely. A young man holding a folding fan walked out. He was wearing a turquoise robe and a star crown. His eyebrows were sharp and his eyes were bright. His face was as clear as jade, and he looked like a noble young master. Around him, the great Tao rumbled and trembled. Nomological laws surged like the sea. His strength was on par with Gui Yufan and Han Ming Zongzi. His face was like the moon in mid-autumn and his face was like a flower at dawn. His hair was like a knife, his eyebrows were like ink paintings, his nose was like a hanging gallbladder and his eyes were like autumn waves. Although he was angry and sometimes he seemed to be smiling, his eyes were full of emotions. He was extremely handsome, like a heavenly god or a true immortal. There was nothing imperfect about him. Behind him, there were more than 10 women in palace dresses, Taoist robes, and even phoenix crowns and robes. There were demons and humans, but each of them had exquisite facial features and hot figures. They were incomparably beautiful and charming. Those 12 women all had their own merits. They all looked at Qin Yu affectionately. That kind of affection was already a kind of obsession. Who is he? It was the first time for many cultivators on Earth to see this person. They couldn't help but be shocked. Qin Yu, the Zongzi of the Wuji sect. He's a playboy and is proficient in mind control. He also cultivates the Tao of dual cultivation. Many of the cultivation arts of the superbrain human clan on Earth came from his sect. Those 12 beautiful fairies are known as the 12 golden hairpins of the Alcade planet region. Each of them is not only beautiful and unparalleled in appearance, but also has a powerful cultivation level and an extraordinary background. They are usually the goddesses and saintesses of the holy sects. The worst one is a princess of a country. It's said that he has to take the 12 golden hairpins with him whether he's cultivating or going on expeditions. Fairy Chen, she said sourly. Besides, he's a good man's wife. I heard that even his subordinate, Zongzi Luo Chen of the Saint Erasword sect, had his cultivation partner, Ziling Fairy. Well, it's not exactly a robbery. That woman was charmed by him and couldn't be beaten away. Luo Chen could only hold his nose and endure it. Those women were completely under his control. Every time he plucked them, they felt extremely comfortable. From their hair to the soles of their feet, every cell and every particle of essence chi was cheering. They had long forgotten their dignity and self, and everything else in the world. They just wanted to sink into his love forever. Beside them, Han Shenxi's face was extremely serious and the corners of his eyes twitched rapidly. Qin Yu, 28th on the galaxy list. The Zongzi of the Wuji sect. He's really here. The core members of the Tianqing school all wore messaging Dharma artifacts and could communicate with each other at any time. At the same time, the black-haired dog heard Shenxi's introduction and nodded. Putting everything else aside, when it comes to picking up girls, Master is nothing. He's like a 10,000-year-old ice block, a blockhead. When we were in the ruins of deity, Princess Li Qi, Princess Ao Jiao and Bai Muxue were all interested in him, but he pretended not to know. It's such a waste. If it were me, Smack. Zhao Xueqing slapped him hard. She raised her eyebrows and shouted, Big Black, what do you mean? What I mean to say is that my lord's love for mistress is as deep as the sea. Out of 3,000 rivers, only one person can be chosen. The two of you are like an immortal couple, A perfect couple. I really admire and envy you to the extreme. It's like the endless torrential river, and also like the overflowing yellow river, once started, it can't be stopped. The black-haired dog said with a flattering face. Zhao Xueqing snorted and ignored him, but there was a hint of sweetness in her heart. So fierce. Why does Master love you so much? Bai Muxue is much gentler than you. The black-haired dog said as he wiped the cold sweat on his forehead and got up without a trace. The black jade Qilin suddenly realized what he meant and slapped him to the ground. He shouted angrily, "Big Black, what do you mean? What right do you have to hit me? I didn't eat your melon seeds and I'm not your man." Big Black was so depressed that he lay on the ground and cried. "I ate your spicy strips, so I'm your man. You have to be responsible for me." The black jade Qilin said fiercely. On the battlefield, Jiang Tian looked at Qin Yu for a few times, as if he was using his divine sense to examine his magical power and body. Suddenly, he smiled as if he was relieved and said mockingly, "With you, it's better than nothing, but it's only better than nothing. It's still too far away." Hearing this, the extraterrestrial cultivators were shocked to the point of numbness. Han Ming, Guiyufeng, Qin Yu. Which one of them wasn't a talented person, a peerless genius? Which one of them wasn't standing at the top of all Daos, sweeping across the sea of stars and sweeping away all obstacles? Which one of them wasn't looking down on the world and suppressing the world for thousands of years? But Jiang Tian still didn't take them seriously. He was simply too arrogant. Chapter 1775. Han Ming Zongzi is right. You're really arrogant. Qin Yu closed his fan, clapped his hands and chuckled. Even when he was angry, he still maintained his composure. He was confident and elegant, as handsome as an immortal. It was as if he had a natural charm, and it was all on the tip of his eyebrows. All kinds of emotions in his life were gathered in the corners of his eyes. How arrogant of you! You don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. How dare you look down on brother Qin Yu? Do you know that when young Master Qin Yu is angry, his anger will only be extinguished by the wailing of billions of creatures? As for the 12 golden hairpins behind him, they were completely enraged. Their beautiful eyes were wide open, their willowy eyebrows were vertical, and they ground their fine silver teeth. They wanted nothing more than to skin Jiang Tian alive to vent their anger. Brothers, this brat actually forgot the pain after the scar healed. Why are you still talking nonsense with him? Brothers, just watch from the side. This Zongzi will directly tear him to pieces. Another Zongzi walked out. Zhang Xian, the Zongzi of the Feiyang sect. This person was tall and mighty, his aura soaring to the heavens. He wore a waistcoat made of flood dragon skin and a pair of dragon boots. The muscles on his body coiled up as if they were cast from copper and iron. He had a small chin, a tiger's beard, round eyes like a leopard's head, and a head full of curly hair that fluttered like a flood dragon. His roar was like a thunderclap, shaking the heavens and causing the majestic space city to buzz. He looked incomparably irritable yet majestic. Everyone on Earth was sweating when they felt Zhang Xian's terrifying power. It was just a roar, but it was enough to shake the Earth, which was half as big as the Earth before the recovery of spiritual aura, to make it hum. Many array glyphs were activated, bursting out brilliant rays of light to resist his power. Kong Teichu, you've seen it. The 4 elites on the galaxy list are here. Only death awaits you. I'll give you one more chance. Surrender and admit your guilt to find a way to survive for Earth. Or do you want to die and let Earth be buried with you? It's your choice. In the end, the goddess of the rainbow wings used another psychological trick and asked Jiang Tian to make the final choice. Of course, she didn't have good intentions. Jiang Tian must die, and Earth must be exterminated because the human race on Earth already knew the truth about the demons causing chaos on Earth. Jiang Tian had already planted the seeds of unyielding resistance on Earth. How could Han Ming sit by and watch these seeds take root and germinate, flourish, and grow? However, Jiang Tian surrendering without a fight was what they were after. After all, Jiang Tian's physique was too good. It could be said to be a peerless heavenly medicine and a supreme food source. Whether it was swallowed and refined directly or refined into great medicine, it could make Han Ming and the other Zongzis receive unimaginable improvement and nourishment. But if Jiang Tian were to die in the battle, Jiang Tian's body and nascent soul would be damaged and his vitality would scatter. This would be a great waste. The 4 great galaxy rankers are all here. Every one of them once swept across the sea of stars and colonized hundreds of habitable planets like Earth. Each of them has killed many soul formation grand cultivators. In the face of such a terrifying enemy, how will Senior Taichu choose? After Fairy Rosy Wing's last threat, a lot of information about the 4 elites from other planets was released and the Myth Alliance issued another warning not to come out of the bunker. At this moment, all the cultivators and mortals on Earth, including the cultivators from other planets who had surrendered, were speechless. Their hearts were trembling with fear. The 4 galaxy rankers were the kind of terrifying beings who could fight against 1,000,000 soldiers on their own. It could be said that Han Ming Zongzi alone was comparable to the total combat power of the previous coalition army of the 5 divine sects. The reason why he didn't move was not because the coalition army of the 5 divine sects was too powerful, but because they were too weak and useless in his eyes. They were used to exhaust Jiang Tian. If they were sacrificed, they could be trained again. At this moment, there were 4 peerless elites who were on par with Han Ming Zongzi. So, one could imagine the pressure Jiang Tian was facing. When the eyes of the whole world were focused on Jiang Tian and they were waiting for his answer, a long time seemed to have passed. What Zongzi? Elites? They're just a bunch of ants. Unexpectedly, Jiang Tian flicked his fingers and said leisurely, I'm in a hurry to go home and accompany my wife and child. I'm in a hurry. You can come at me together. As soon as these words came out, the entire extraterritorial battlefield was shocked. Even the expressions of many Zongzi and elites changed drastically. Han Ming Zongzi's eyes were filled with extreme murderous intent. Let's go. There's nothing to see. Fairy Chen she shook her head and pulled Han Ming Zongzi's sleeve. In her opinion, the outcome was already decided. The 4 elites were all here. Their combat power was too terrifying. Even in the Big Dipper, it was the most luxurious lineup of the younger generation. Even if the immortals from the 9 heavens descended to the mortal world, they might not be able to save Jiang Tian. Even if Jiang Tian saved them, the forces behind them were equivalent to the combined forces of the Alcade and Mizar galaxies. Jiang Tian would face endless terrible revenge. Let's go. The barbarians don't understand the true strength of the cultivation civilization. In fact, he has failed since the day he declared war. Elder Pan Sheng also shook his head and sighed regretfully. Jiang Tian was certainly strong. He might even be able to fight against Han Ming Zongzi, or at least escape unscathed. However, the 4 elites were all here, which was a peerless death trap. He wouldn't have a chance to survive. In his opinion, Jiang Tian should not have infuriated Han Ming and made Han Ming reveal his dagger so quickly, draw his sword, and play the most terrifying trump card. Instead, he should have lowered his head for the time being, feigned civility, and planned slowly, exchanging time for space, and then shed all pretense of cordiality 10 or 100 years later. Seniors, please forgive us. The powerful enemies of the Big Dipper are all here and Earth is about to be destroyed. We're too weak and we don't dare to face them head-on. We're going to leave the Star Ocean for the time being to avoid them and save our lives. Hanch Shensi hesitated for 10 seconds as various thoughts flashed through his mind. In the end, he heaved a sigh and bowed deeply to Jiang Changging, clasped his hands and said with a guilty and apologetic face, I'm sorry. However, we greatly admire Senior Taichu's fighting spirit, and we also value our friendship with Senior Taichu over the past few days. Our star battleship still has more than 100 seats and supplies. If you want to keep your descendants, we can take them with us. Seniors, don't worry. We'll take good care of them. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone's hearts were filled with sorrow and despair. That meant that Hanch and the others had reached a consensus that Jiang Tian would definitely lose. However, they couldn't blame Hanch and the others. It was human nature to seek advantages and avoid disadvantages. They weren't creatures on Earth and didn't have the slightest relationship with them. Every choice was based on the pros and cons. It would be best if Jiang Tian could achieve a complete victory. They would be able to gain great benefits from guarding Earth. But if Jiang Tian had a 100% chance of losing, they would not stay here stupidly and wait for Han Ming to come and chop them. After all, they had already betrayed Han Ming. How could Han Ming forgive them? The Myth Alliance has announced to the world that if anyone is willing to escape with you, you can go around the planet and take them with you. Jiang Changging's face was complicated. He hesitated for a moment, then suddenly bowed 90 degrees to Hanch. He had mixed feelings when he said that, as if he had thousands of words to say. In the end, he heaved a long sigh and said solemnly, "On behalf of the Myth Alliance and the entire Earth civilization, this old man would like to express our most sincere gratitude to Hanch Divine Prince." Chapter 1776. Emotionally, Jiang Changging certainly hoped that Jiang Tian could win. However, he was in charge of the entire Myth Alliance, so he had to consider everything carefully. He couldn't act on impulse. If Jiang Tian lost, Earth would be completely wiped out. He wouldn't dare to take the risk. If he could leave some roots of civilization, he would. At this time, Lian Sheng, Sasaki Haisa, Sidu Shao and the other disciples also understood this point. For a moment, their hearts were heavy. The oppressive atmosphere was suffocating. "Senior Changging, you're too kind. I'll take my leave now." Hanch Shensi shook his head regretfully, then patted his storage ring, and a crystal warship appeared above the Tianqing sect. Afterward, he led the Shi of Dawn and many other extraterrestrial cultivators into the crystal warship. Then they would go around Earth and take some people with them. An hour later, they went straight into the Star Ocean and flew away. Victory or defeat will depend on this battle. Jiang Changging, Sidu Shao, Lian Sheng and the others all looked at the light curtain in the sky. They looked extremely nervous and solemn. At the same time, changes had already happened on the battlefield. The figures of Han Ming, Gui Yufan, Zhang Xian, and Qin Yu flashed and stood 300 miles away from Jiang Tian. They formed a circle around Jiang Tian, surrounding him in the center. All kinds of laws revolved around them. Strange phenomena soared into the sky, and killing intent surged. They were ready to unleash the most terrifying attack at any moment. A battle could break out at any time. They would work together to kill. In the eyes of powerful elites like Han Ming and Zhongzi, they knew that a lion would do its best to catch a rabbit. They didn't care about moral rules at all. They believed that the winner would take all and only those who survived would have the chance to speak. Therefore, they immediately joined forces to kill him. They wanted to win without showing any mercy. Seeing that, the goddess of the rainbow wings sneered and shouted, "Kong Te Chu, my husband is benevolent and has given Earth the last chance to survive. Why don't you kneel down and kowtow to thank him?" In her opinion, no matter how strong Jiang Tian was, he was only a nascent soul cultivator after all. With the 4 elites on the galaxy list gathered, they could crush him like an ant. Don't think you're something just because you killed so many soul formation cultivators in the ruins of immortality. The famous sword god of the ruins of immortality's ruins Emperor Palace was merely defeated by my subordinate, the Sacred Era Sword Sect's patriarch, Luo Qin. The fact that you can suppress those normal semi-god realm warriors is like a grain of rice that can't compete with the sun and the moon. That doesn't prove anything. Qin Yu gently waved his folding fan. He was handsome and carefree, like Master Yu Mo or young Master Wu Shuang. He chuckled. He was extremely confident, as if victory was already within his grasp. "Aren't you guys talking too much? Wasn't it just a fight? You're jabbering on and on here." Jiang Tian calmly placed the green lotus golden lotus into the sky-devouring demonic gourd. Then, with a wave of his hand, the myriad stone tripod appeared in his hand. "Like I said before, I'm in a hurry. Come at me together." This treasure is actually emitting chaotic qi, and it's 10 times denser than the green lotus golden lotus. It can be said to be an immortal material. Gui Yufan was shocked. He could clearly feel that the myriad stone tripod was several times more powerful than the silver sacred wings on his back. It was definitely much more powerful than a divine weapon. His eyes were bloodshot with jealousy. This guy is really blessed by God. He's so lucky. Even in this remote and desolate star field, he was able to obtain such a precious treasure. Han Ming glanced at everyone after recovering from the shock and said with a smile, "Brothers, I've told you that Planet East once shone in the ancient times and there must be a great opportunity there. Now, you've seen that I wasn't lying. Kill him." Qin Yu showed strong viciousness for the first time and said concisely, "You're too long-winded. Do we need to be so cautious when facing an ant? Kill him and give his body to Han Ming. We'll split his heavenly treasures equally." Zhang Xian, the most bad-tempered one, shouted. He reached his right hand into the air and a domineering dragon-shaped halberd appeared out of thin air. Then, he held the halberd tightly with both hands and his energy surged again. He suddenly shook and a true dragon circled around the halberd and Dharma laws appeared. The halberd shone and a bright light burst out, tearing the air apart and collapsing it. A terrifying space storm broke out, forming a dark hole. "Go to hell!" Zhang Xian shouted and turned into a ray of light with the halberd. The halberd pierced towards Jiang Tian like a dragon. Zhang Xian, the sect prince of the Feiyang sect, was a sacred soul formation realm warrior who had been at his peak for 800 years. He had an extremely strong control of Dharma laws and could command them with ease. He was more than 10 times or even 100 times more powerful than 9th-grade divine lords such as Bing Jian and Xieyu. Boom! It was as if a hole had been blasted open between the heavens and earth. Surging laws surged out like a boiling river. The shattered space transformed into a multicolored tide of fragments that surged out in all directions. At this moment, the 9 heavens and 10 earths were shaking. The stars in the sky swayed as if they were about to fall. "Let's do it together!" Han Ming and the other 2 Zongzis also attacked at the same time. Mountains and rivers were destroyed, the sun and the moon left marks, demons swallowed the sky. All kinds of divine powers burst out and attacked Jiang Tian crazily. "You're just an ant." Ant. In the face of the dragon-shaped halberd, Jiang Tian's eyes were emotionless. He just gently lifted the myriad stone cauldron and smashed it down. Bang! The dragon-shaped halberd, which was as fast as lightning, was crushed like a piece of paper under the myriad origin cauldron's attack. It shattered miserably. A chaotic airflow, which contained a terrifying killing power, rushed towards Zhang Xian along the halberd like a dancing dragon. "What?" Zhang Xian was taken aback. She was so scared that her soul almost left her body. She threw away the broken dragon-shaped halberd. Her body swayed as she unleashed the Feiyang sect's true dragon's 8 steps to the extreme. She was like a true dragon that soared into the sky and fled desperately. Once an expert made a move, one would know whether he was a real expert or not. His dragon-shaped halberd was refined from the slough of a true dragon from the depths of the universe. It was the culmination of tens of thousands of years of hard work of several ancestors. It was a top-grade Taoist weapon and could be called a quasi-divine weapon. It was indestructible and unstoppable. However, it was smashed by Jiang Tian's cauldron at this moment. It showed how terrifying Jiang Tian's strength and the myriad stone cauldron were. In fact, although Jiang Tian's myriad stone cauldron was good, it was like a 3-year-old child being given a fighter jet. He could not use any of its combat power. The power of various magic treasures was closely related to the cultivation of the owner. In his opinion, Jiang Tian could not use 1/10 of the myriad stone cauldron's power and would even be restrained. His dragon-shaped halberd had long been refined into a magic treasure. When used, it involved thousands of daos and triggered various techniques. It could completely suppress Jiang Tian. However, he now understood that he was completely wrong. This kid is so strong. I can't raise a tiger and invite calamity. No matter what, I must kill him today. He thought fiercely in his heart as he fled rapidly. Although he was retreating a little pathetically, Zhang Xian believed that escaping was not a problem. The true dragon's 8 steps was the ultimate movement technique of the Feiyang sect. In ancient times, an ancestor was fortunate enough to discover a true dragon's lair in the depths of the universe. He had seen the traces of a true dragon and had comprehended many sloughs. It could break through space and travel thousands of miles in the air. It was many times more powerful than the Xing technique of the 9 great secret techniques of the ruins of immortality. Relying on this movement technique, Zhang Xian was successful in both attacking and escaping. He was similar to Gui Yufan, who had the silver wings on his back. Therefore, Zhang Xian was the first to attack Jiang Tian. It was not entirely because of his fiery temper. It was more because he was not afraid of Jiang Tian. Can you run? However, Jiang Tian would not give him the chance to escape. The divine disk behind him spun. With a wave of his hand, 2 types of divine laws were shot out. Sea calming divine law. Kuanpeng divine law. Together. Chapter 1777. Once the sea calming divine law was used, Zhang Xian immediately felt like a loach stuck in concrete. She couldn't perform the true dragon 9 steps at all, and her speed became slower. After 3 flicks, she was like a fly trapped in amber. Her limbs were stiff and she couldn't move at all. Even her divine soul was frozen and she couldn't break free. Zhang Xian's true dragon 8 steps was certainly of a high level. It was a sage-level cultivation art and it was extraordinary. But after all, it was only created by her ancestor from the mark of the true dragon. It didn't have the blood of the true dragon. Jiang Tian's sea-calming ice divine law was made with the deity material, the Dinghai pearl, and many other sky treasures. It could even control the true dragon and the Kuanpeng, let alone him. What? Help me, my friends. In Zhang Xian's horrified eyes, Jiang Tian's figure grew bigger and bigger, closer and closer. She couldn't help but cry out loudly. It's too late. Jiang Tian, who had used the speed of the Kuanpeng to dodge the attacks of the other 3 elites, moved a few hundred miles in 1 step. Without saying a word, he swung the stone cauldron of creation, which was surrounded by chaotic energy, and slammed it down. Bang bang bang. Zhang Xian's head, neck, chest, abdomen and limbs exploded like firecrackers. At this moment, under the overwhelming power of the stone cauldron of myriad origin, Zhang Xian's muscular body, which seemed to be cast from copper and iron and could completely withstand 1,000 controllable nuclear explosions, directly exploded like an egg under the weight of a giant mountain. Even the most condensed divine treasures were as fragile as ants, and they were all destroyed. The divine bones, which were radiating brilliant light, and the flesh, which was as translucent as gems, spread out in the air like a distorted and chaotic abstract painting. She's dead. At the same time, many cultivators in the Feiyang sect's space city where Zhang Xian was, were enraged and frightened. There were only a few elites on the Star River Roll in the Feiyang sect in the past 1,000 years. Besides, Zhang Xian was ranked very high. She was the future heir of the sect and countless resources were spent on her. Her identity was extremely noble and important. Now that he had fallen here, it was a huge matter that could pierce the heavens. Once this news spread back to the Alcade Star Zone, the entire universe would be enraged. Perhaps even the top echelons of the unparalleled divine sects would not be able to sit still. They would definitely send out fleets 10 times or even 100 times stronger than before to conquer Earth. By then, not only Earth and the ruins of deity, even the soul formation, nascent soul and golden core cultivators who had survived wouldn't be able to escape. The anger of the elders of the immortal sects would definitely be directed at them. Even Zhongzi is dead. How can a mere nascent soul or golden core cultivator like you survive? Are you betraying your master for glory, betraying my Zhongzi and aiding the evildoer? Taking a step back, was it because they didn't coordinate well enough, weren't they brave enough to kill the enemy, and retreated out of fear? As long as one person said such a thing, they would die without a burial place. Kill him. The Soul Formation Grand Cultivator who was in charge of the space city of the Feiyang sect roared. Immediately, thousands of cannons were fired. It felt as if 100,000 large sunflowers had appeared on Earth before the Spirit Chi revival. One after another, giant Taoist artifacts extended out. Immediately, countless laws, light beams, and even the heavenly thunders, earthly fires, gales, and fragments collected from the depths of the universe were thrown toward Jiang Tian as if they were free, tearing huge holes in the vast sky. 1,000 lotuses. Jiang Tian released the divine law of gung metal and surrounded himself with 1,000 lotuses for defense. He circled irregularly and dodged the attacks like a Kunpeng tearing the sky. He immediately rushed to the sky. Break! He threw the cauldron of myriad origin at the space city like a king lifting a cauldron. He's out of his mind. The space city is a planetary-level super-large Dharma artifact. It's as tough as a small sacred weapon. It's like a star in the universe. Does Kong Teichu really think he has the ability to destroy the sun and the moon? Gutsai said with disdain. In her eyes, Jiang Tian was undoubtedly a lunatic who was throwing an egg at a rock. Kong Teichu is really interesting. He's trying to destroy the space city of the sacred weapon level with a stone cauldron. He's crazy. The space city is made of 9 heavens gold and engraved with countless runes. It's as tough as a planet, if not even tougher. Many cultivators from other planets shook their heads and laughed. Kong Teichu is just an ant from a remote planet after all. He's never seen the power of a real space city. He's like a frog at the bottom of a well. That's why he's doing something so reckless. You dare to smash a space city with a piece of broken rock? How laughable. I'm afraid he'll die from the backlash. Kong Teichu is really pitiful. Even though Qin Yu's 12 golden hairpins didn't dare to laugh out loud because of their manners, they covered their mouths and chuckled. Their breasts heaved up and down. However, the development of the situation was far beyond everyone's expectations. The cauldron of myriad origin hit the space city of the Feiyang sect with a loud clang that resounded through the world. Instantly, terrifying ripples of laws spread out in all directions like waves. Countless meteorites, warship fragments, weapons and Dharma artifacts that seemed to have been refined 100 times were crushed into powder. A lot of nascent soul cultivators were shaking and vomiting blood. Many rune arrays on the space city of the Feiyang sect suddenly shone brightly, as if a planet had turned into a star. The light was extremely bright and dazzling, but then it dimmed and went out. That was because the runes of the rune arrays were broken by the cauldron of myriad origin and destroyed by the chaotic Dharma laws. Without the protection of the talisman formation, the ancient and boundless space city of the Feiyang sect, which was covered with the scars of swords and sabers, was about to face the endless strange power of the myriad stone cauldron and the destructive power of the universal principle. With the point of impact as the core, the hull of the ship started to turn red, like a hot soldering iron. Then, it melted like wax. The cauldron of myriad origin crashed into it and loud clangs were heard. The cauldron of myriad origin penetrated all the way inside. At this time, a red color spread rapidly from the point of impact. Half of the entire space city, which was thousands of miles in radius, turned red. Then, it emitted flames that soared into the sky. The liquid metal directly vaporized and turned into green smoke. It was as if a real star was inhaling and exhaling sun essence. At that moment, according to the calculations of the supercomputers on Earth, the temperature was equivalent to 1/10 of the surface of the sun. It was much more terrifying than the center of a controllable nuclear explosion. And it wasn't something that a nascent soul cultivator or a soul formation cultivator could withstand. It was unknown how many cultivators in the space city had died before they could even let out a scream. And it only took 10 flicks of the fingers. The cauldron of myriad origin penetrated the entire space city with a diameter of 20,000 miles, which was like the Earth before the spirit chi revival. It rushed out from the opposite side of the point of impact and flew into Jiang Tian's hand in a curve. The entire space city of the Feiyang sect was dead silent. There seemed to be no sign of life at all. It turned into a giant iron lump floating in the air and had lost the ability to move and attack. All the cultivators of the large sects who witnessed this scene felt as if a basin of cold water had been poured over their heads. Their hearts were as cold as ice. Is it that powerful? Even Han Ming, Gui Yufan, and Qin Yu were dumbfounded, their eyes wide and mouths agape. Although they knew that Jiang Tian was very powerful and the stone cauldron in his hand was also extraordinary and valuable, they had never thought that its power would be so terrifying. It had penetrated a planetary space city with one attack. The smiles of the rainbow wings fairy and the 12 golden hairpins froze on their faces. They couldn't smile anymore. All the girls' eyes were wide open and they were tongue-tied, but they couldn't say a word. The mockery, disdain, and contempt on their good-looking faces had long disappeared. It was replaced by extreme shock and fear that they didn't want to admit. "Can't you? Back off, back off." The rainbow wings fairy was so scared that her legs trembled and she almost sat on the ground. Then she stomped her feet and gave the order in a panic. They had thought that with the indestructible space city protecting them, their lives wouldn't be in danger. That was why they dared to talk nonsense. But now, they didn't dare to mock Jiang Tian anymore. They were almost scared to death. Chapter 1778. I Won't Die. However, all of a sudden, between Zhang Xian's broken corpse, the faint divine soul suddenly condensed. With a loud cry, a substitute holy talisman, floating in the air suddenly burned. At the same time, an extremely divine and vast aura surged out. The myriad of laws and grand daos rumbled and trembled. Violent dermic energy surged rapidly like a raging sea, and it enveloped an area of 5 kilometers in radius. The substitute holy talisman was much more powerful than the protection talisman. It was drawn with the blood of a void-return sage. How precious was the blood of a sage! The dharma power of a sage's talisman was terrifying. It was said that a drop of the sage's blood could kill a soul formation cultivator and turn an area of 10,000 miles into dust. Although the legend was exaggerated, it was easy to save a soul formation cultivator with the substitute holy talisman. The substitute holy talisman burned. Streaks of holy light rippled and shrouded Zhang Xian's broken corpse like a 5-colored haze. Under the warm light, those broken limbs, internal organs, blood, and broken bones actually healed and interweaved at a speed that could be seen by the naked eye. In just a few seconds, Zhang Xian's corporeal body was restored to its original state. In the end, even the god was in perfect condition. Even the faint red traces on the surface of her body were erased by the vast magic power. Zhang Xian came back from the dead. No wonder it's a talisman written with the blood of a sage. Many Zongzis were shocked. Qinyu Zongzi waved his folding fan and said with a smug smile on his handsome face, "That's right. Zhang Xian is on the same level as us. He's a talent on the galaxy list, the successor of the Feiyang sect, and has a chance to reach the Void Return realm in the future. The Feiyang sect values him so much. Why didn't he bring a few protective holy talismans with him? You've made us worry for nothing." Zhang Xian calmed himself down and laughed. "Kong Teichu is powerful, but he's too weak. We all have a few substitute holy talismans. Kong Teichu, do you think you can kill us with one cauldron? You're dreaming." At this moment, enveloped by the light of the Saint Talisman, his entire body had recovered, without even a trace of injury. Under the nourishment of the Saint Talisman, his aura had become even stronger than before. How could he have looked like he was on the verge of death? His courage rose and his energy shot to the sky. Gui Yufan flapped his silver wings and was surrounded by a river of stars. The space around his wings was clear and rippling like water. He grinned hideously and said, "If that's the case, why should I be afraid of him?" This kid's bloodline and physique, as well as the treasures in his possession, were all amazing. Sacrificing a few substitute holy talismans to take him down is also worth it. This is bad. Zhao Xueqing furrowed her brows. She held her saber tightly, her palms covered in cold sweat. Both the big black dog and the black jade Qilin also wore human-like expressions of nervousness. Others couldn't see it, but she could sense it since she was a deity-grade soul formation realm cultivator. After Jiang Tian smashed out the cauldron, the divine disk behind him dimmed a little. The chaotic aura and principles lingered around his body. Apparently, Jiang Tianju could not use another cauldron in a short time. This was why the myriad origin stone cauldron was so terrifying. It was in existence at the level of immortal material and divine materials, and it possessed peerless might. It was heavy and vast like a world, and if it wasn't for Jiang Tian refining and absorbing the earth winged dragon and causing his body to naturally conform to it, He would be utterly unable to utilize it in the slightest. However, even with that being the case, Jiang Tian was unable to unleash a third strike after using it twice in a row. Jiang Tian had just destroyed a planetary city in space. He was a sacred soul formation realm cultivator and an elite on the Star River roll. That would consume too much energy. It was simple. When Jiang Tian used the Cauldron of Myriad Origin to kill normal soul formation realm cultivators, it was like breaking an egg with a hammer. But then, Jiang Tian had destroyed a mountain with a giant hammer. The divine laws and dharma power he consumed were completely different. And yet, Jiang Tian glanced at Zhao Xueqing from afar and gave her a look that said, "Don't worry." Then, he turned around, stood in the sky with the stone cauldron and chuckled. "Zhang Xian, you seem to have underestimated the power of my cauldron. This stone cauldron is called the Cauldron of Myriad Origin. It's filled with chaotic energy and contains earth-shattering dharma laws. One attack can shake the galaxy and tear the universe apart. Even void-returning saints have to stay away from it. How can you save him with a deity-grade talisman? Even if you have 1,000 or 10,000 talismans, I'll still be able to kill you. You'll definitely die if I hit you." "What do you mean?" Zhang Xian was startled. Before everyone could react, numerous crimson-red scars appeared on Zhang Xian's body where the original light-red scars were, and they crisscrossed like a cobweb that covered her entire body. Numerous strands of the laws of chaos suddenly expanded and erupted with extremely dazzling rays of light that were like celestial light and divine radiance. It seemed as if it wanted to split open the heavens and the earth and reopen the universe, and it caused those injuries to appear out of thin air from the inside out. Suddenly, it tore Zhang Xian, along with her soul, deity, and body into countless pieces. Boom. Then, Zhang Xian and Zhongzi were revived with the help of the deity-grade talismans, but they were killed by the invisible laws of chaos in their bodies again. He had 3 deity-grade talismans with him, so he was revived 3 times and killed 3 times in a row. In the end, his holy talismans were completely consumed, and he was completely terrified. He wailed miserably as the primal chaos law hidden in the depths of his divine treasures completely minced his body and god body. He exploded into a cloud of blood mist and dissipated in the world. At that moment, there was a dead silence. Many of the Zongzis, as well as the great cultivators of the Archaean sect who had come with them, were dumbfounded by this scene. This Jiang Taichu is too ferocious. Zhang Xian was killed 3 times by the remaining laws of chaos in a row and died in the end. Husai, the 12 golden hairpins, and the other girls all turned pale. Their eyes widened and they trembled. They no longer had the arrogance and pride they had before. The remaining 3 Zongzi's hands were trembling and their brows were furrowed. Their expressions were unprecedentedly serious and fearful. What kind of terrifying and miraculous divine ability law was this? Even the deity-grade talismans drawn by the Supreme Sage with the blood of return to void stage mighty figures couldn't be revived. Even after being resurrected, the law of primal chaos would still hunt him down. Did this mean that the law of primal chaos would forever be hidden in the divine treasures, strangling gods? Even if one was reincarnated, and possessed another body, it would still follow them, multiplying and multiplying endlessly without rest? Is this still a treasure and a divine power? Not even the laws of saints have such terrifying power, Guiyufan said in a trembling voice as he stared at Jiang Tian. Jiang Tian smiled. The myriad stone cauldron wasn't a material from this world, but a real immortal material. Even if it was placed in the central galaxy, the imperishable sects would fight over it. His divine body, laws, divine infant, and divine soul didn't belong to this world either. Even though they were refined, they were like deities. Jiang Tian's body constitution was rare even in the central galaxy and the deity realm of 9 heavens. He could kill a void-returning saint at the soul formation level, which would shock the universe. This guy is too powerful. Should we fight or not? It's indeed risky, but we'll gain a lot if we kill him. To be safe, let's avoid him for now and ask the dark ancestors of our sects for help. While Hanming Zongzi, Guiyufan, and Qin Yu were communicating with each other through divine awareness. You don't want to fight? You want to run? But you don't have the final say on the battlefield now. Jiang Tian narrowed his eyes and raised the giant cauldron. He flew into the sky and smashed it toward Guiyufan. The divine wings on this guy's back were extraordinary and he could escape at any time. Jiang Tian had to keep him here first. That's right. At this time, Jiang Tian had already decided to eliminate the source of trouble. Those who dared to invade Earth must be wiped out, not leaving even a chicken or a dog alive. Chapter 1779. Kill. Jiang Tian unleashed the Kunpeng's extreme speed and traveled a few hundred miles in the blink of an eye. The giant cauldron in his hand was boiling and Dharma laws surrounded it like silk. It was extremely heavy and its power was unstoppable, as if it could split the world. It then smashed towards Guiyufan. Roar! Guiyufan's guardian beast was a double-winged sky dragon. It suddenly roared out and straightened its body. A vast, surging pressure appeared from it. It unfurled its wings and countless violet patterns appeared on them, blotting out the sun. They were like two walls that sealed off the entire sky. On the other hand, Guiyufan's expression was extremely solemn as he unleashed his strongest divine ability. Galaxy Surge. Dazzling rivers of stars surged out from his back and spread out around him, forming a sea of stars barrier. Each of those bright light spots was the Dharma laws of a planet. They were extremely condensed and thick, as if they were the essence of a world. Not even Song Ming, the most powerful ancestral patriarch in the ruins of deity, could move it. In order to cultivate this divine power, Guiyufan had used up hundreds of planets with life like Earth before the Spirit Chi revival and killed billions of people. However, Guiyufan could be ranked in the top 100 of the galaxy list with this divine power alone and was known as a peerless elite. He shouldn't be able to break it. Because he had used too many divine powers, Guiyufan had just heaved a sigh of relief with a pale face when he suddenly saw the double-winged sky dragon tremble. The chaotic aura, which was like a heavenly river pouring down, pierced through the dragon's head all the way to the tail. The barrier formed by the heavenly dragon's wings that covered the sky was instantly crushed by the primal chaos law, turning into a rain of flesh that fell down. No! Guiyufan turned pale with fright, and the pair of silver wings on his back suddenly unfolded. With a flap, he soared into the sky, bringing along the surging river of stars as he swiftly fled. You can't run away! Jiang Tian shouted coldly and landed abruptly. Like a soccer ball, he kicked up the descending source stone cauldron. The mother stone cauldron then shot into the sky, tearing through layers of dimensional barriers and shattering countless Dharma laws and Dharma laws. It then smashed into his chest. Clang. In the void, a brilliant ray of light tore through the firmament and shook the galaxy. Whether it was the double-winged celestial dragon, a treasure beast with a bloodline purer than the black jade Chilance, or the many worlds that shook the galaxy, none of them could withstand the might of the Mother Stone Cauldron's attack. Guiyufan could clearly see the rugged ancient patterns on the Mother Stone Cauldron. It was too late for him to dodge. The Source Stone Cauldron was like a meteor streaking across the sky as it crashed heavily into his body. The terrifying law of primal chaos brought with it an aura that could destroy heaven and earth. It was like a poisonous dragon tearing through his skin and tunneling into his internal organs. It broke through his divine treasures and strangled him to death. Bang bang bang. Guiyufan's corporeal body, divine treasures, and even the god's soul were all crushed into pieces by Jiang Tian's attack. He didn't even have the time to activate the substitution's sacred talismans in his body before he was completely annihilated. The myriad origin cauldron and the terrifying law of primal chaos had completely annihilated him. In the blink of an eye, the second genius on the galaxy list had fallen. The entire sea of stars was trembling. The second genius on the galaxy list, the Zongzi of the divine sect, had fallen. And that was when Qin Yu and Han Ming had tried to stop him, but Jiang Tian had dodged all their attempts. What was more terrifying was that Guiyufan's wings were connate quasi-sacred weapons and were said to be the fastest in the world, but he still couldn't escape. The scariest thing was that the few substitution sacred talismans he had on him hadn't been activated in time. Those sacred talismans were written with the blood of grand cultivators and had all kinds of incredible magical powers. Even if the nascent soul of a cultivator below the soul formation level was shattered, it could be pulled back in a certain amount of time, but it wasn't invincible after all. The myriad origin cauldron was a deity material made of chaotic materials and could create everything. Once the law of primal chaos was activated, it would be like the Big Bang of the universe. It could tear apart the endless void and give birth to billions of galaxies. What a terrifying tearing power! Although Jiang Tian was only at the mid-stage of the nascent soul level, like the child of a god, and the power of the cauldron of myriad origin was only 1/10,000th of it, it was still not something a half-saint soul formation cultivator could withstand, let alone the virtual universe. That treasure was too powerful. Once the law of primal chaos was activated, it would be imprinted in the world and wouldn't disappear for a long time, which would attract the attention of grand cultivators passing by. That was why Jiang Tian didn't want to use the myriad origin cauldron so easily. But then, the 4 elites on the galaxy list had gathered. They were either half-sacred soul formation level or sacred soul formation level cultivators, and they had all reached the peak. It was a peerless killing situation. Of course, Jiang Tian didn't hold back and displayed the power of that killing weapon. Swish! Jiang Tian caught up with the myriad origin cauldron, grabbed it and swung it. Chaotic energies surged out and shredded the world. 7 or 8 divine transformation stage elders of the banished immortal palace who wanted to rescue them didn't even have time to dodge before they were crushed into powder. Those with lower cultivation bases and grades were even directly turned into green smoke and dissipated in the air. Those elders were the elites of the immortal banishing palace. They were 7th or 8th grade divine transformation realm cultivators, and they had mastered the rules. Their vital chi was extremely vast. Their cultivation and abilities were similar to Bing Jian, Sir God Evil Moon, and the others. Moreover, they had many doctrine artifacts that could protect their bodies and extend their lives. Although they were slightly inferior to the substitute holy talisman, under normal circumstances, it would be difficult to kill them. But then, all the doctrine artifacts were useless in front of the chaotic energy of the myriad origin cauldron. They were crushed into pieces like paper. Even the indestructible gods were reduced to dust by the monstrous chaotic aura and nomological laws. Moreover, the nomological laws of primal chaos continued to circulate and condense before exploding, as if they were simulating the Big Bang of the universe. Even a return to void stage saint would not be able to bring them back to life. Bang bang bang. At this moment, the double-winged celestial dragon exploded from head to tail, like brilliant fireworks blooming in the vacuum of the universe. It was dazzling, magnificent, and captivating to the extreme. But all the people who witnessed that scene felt as if a basin of ice water had been poured over their faces. They felt cold from head to toe. That double-winged dragon was the descendant of a divine beast of the banished God's Hall. Although the divine beast of the banished God's Hall, the 6-winged dragon, was acquired and its bloodline wasn't pure and it was at the bottom of the divine beasts, it was still a divine beast and its body was known for its toughness. It was said that in the ancient times, there was a saint who attacked with a holy weapon. But he only injured the 6-winged dragon and didn't split its body completely. That showed how powerful the bloodline was and how tough the body was. However, the double-winged heavenly dragon, which had inherited such a powerful bloodline, was smashed into flames by Jiang Tian's cauldron. Its 1,000-meter-long dragon body could not even stop Jiang Tian for a second before it was killed by Jiang Tian's cauldron. How could that not be terrifying and shocking? At that moment, Han Ming and Qin Yu's faces were extremely grave. The 9-tailed ice phoenix, the guardian beast beside Han Ming, even showed a human-like look of fear. It lowered its head slightly and whined, as if it wanted to submit to Jiang Tian. Jiang Tian's strength was too terrifying. Retreat! At that moment, Han Ming and Qin Yu's faces were as pale as paper. They transmitted their voices almost in unison. Chapter 1780. The heavenly treasures in Jiang Tian's hands and his body were indeed tempting. It could be said that all the resources on the deity ground and earth, including the spirit chi that could destroy a planet, had been gathered in Jiang Tian's family. The blood essence of their family and the resources in their hands represented a massive opportunity that could allow them to ascend to the return to void stage in a single bound. However, Han Ming and Qin Yu were only on par with Zhang Xian and Gui Yufan, but Jiang Tian, Zhang Xian and Gui Yufan could kill them with a flick of a finger. They had a high chance of dying when facing Jiang Tian. What was different from Jiang Tian was that their backgrounds were too deep, and their foundations were extremely deep. Although the divine sect behind them hadn't had a void return saint in the past 10,000 years, there were still many half-void return saints. There was no need for them to fight Jiang Tian to the death. They could have asked the ancestral patriarchs of their sect to kill Jiang Tian. We're descendants of the divine sect. How can we retreat? Han Ming, you have to avenge my brother. Kill that damn Kang Teichu. In the Yuntian Palace's space city, Guocai's eyes were filled with tears. She beat her chest and stamped her feet, shouting at the top of her lungs. She was extremely aggrieved and angry. Her own brother, Gui Yufan, the Zongzi of the banished immortal palace, a half-step divine transformation stage cultivator, had actually died in a starfield where cultivation orthodoxy was in decline. Moreover, he was killed by a lowly ant. How could she swallow this anger? Really? Why don't you do it yourself if you ask your partner to kill me? Suddenly, a muffled voice resounded in her ears. Before Fairy Rosy Wings could react, a giant hand covered with scales suddenly grabbed her like an eagle grabbing a chick. Where there's life, there's hope. Han Ming Zongzi, who was running away, was both ashamed and angry. Just as he was about to reprimand them, he heard the rainbow-winged fairy's exclamation. Then he saw a being with a dragon head and a human body catch the rainbow-winged fairy. Yes, it's Jiang Taichu's external manifestation heaven avatar. But when did that happen? Han Ming was dumbfounded. The corners of his eyes twitched. For a moment he was in a dilemma. Kang Taichu, let me go. The rainbow-winged fairy's beautiful face turned pale. She danced and struggled desperately, but in fact, she was weak at heart. She threatened, I am the saintess of the banished immortal palace. My status is noble. If you dare to kill me, the higher-ups of the holy sect will be furious. They will definitely massacre the earth and take your dog life. This holy maiden of the banished immortal hall had disheveled hair, and her white armor was stained with blood. How did she look like a holy maiden? 2 lines of tears flowed down her beautiful face. At this moment, there was a ferocious look in her eyes as she stared at Jiang Tian like a demon from hell. A trace of disdain flashed through the eyes of the thick earth-winged dragon clone. Without saying a word, it pulled her clean, slender, and smooth legs with its 2 huge hands. The next moment, blood dyed the sky red. Organs flew everywhere. It was a sad scene. The woman was directly torn into 2 pieces from the middle. However, the rainbow-winged fairy also had a substitute holy talisman on her, so she quickly recovered. She looked panicked and was about to escape. Caught in the hands of the thick earth-winged dragon clone, the rainbow-winged fairy was so scared that her face was as white as paper. She cried with tears in her eyes, Han Ming, save me. Jiang Tian's real body had already stepped into the void, carrying the cauldron toward Han Ming. How vicious! How can you be like this? Han Ming immediately understood that Jiang Tian was not trying to kill the rainbow-winged fairy at all, but to restrain him. He roared angrily, Kang Teichu, you are unscrupulous, despicable, and shameless. One day I will take revenge. I will tear you into pieces, wash the solar system with blood, and avenge my Taoist companion. Although his words were pleasant to hear, he exerted his speed to the extreme. He rode the 9-tailed ice phoenix and fled into the deep space of the universe without looking back. He did not care about the rainbow-winged fairy at all. Taoist companions were birds in the same forest, but they flew away separately in the face of disaster. It seems that in Han Ming's mind, you are not so important. It's useless to keep you here. The thick earth-winged dragon clone revealed a human-like playful smile on its dragon head. Its voice was similar to Jiang Tian's, but it was like a clap of thunder exploding in the void. As he spoke, his hands formed seals like the Buddhist sect, and it was as if he was crushing an ant. Amidst Fairy Rosy Wing's terrified howls and pleas, he brazenly crushed her into a piece of paper with copious and irresistible terrifying force. For a moment, waves of blood and rain of flesh sprayed out from between the scale-covered fingers of the thick earth-winged dragon. The rainbow-winged fairy, whose beauty was famous in the Mizar star field, died just like that. Until the moment of her death, the rainbow-winged fairy's charming little face was still full of astonishment, horror, unwillingness, and resentment. It seemed that she could not believe that she would die so tragically in a remote star field that she regarded as a remote place. It seemed that she could not believe that Jiang Tian was so powerful and ruthless. It seemed that she could not believe that Han Ming Zongzi, whom she regarded as her backer, was so cold-hearted that he did not care about her life. After the thick earth-winged dragon killed the rainbow-winged fairy, its eyes flashed with a demonic and fierce light, and the corners of its mouth curled up into a hideous smile. Without saying a word, it soared into the sky, zigzagged, and headed for the space city of the Limitless Sect, where the 12 golden hairpins were. Qin Yu had already sent a message to the 12 golden hairpins through his divine sense, asking them to drive the space city to escape. However, the 12 golden hairpins loved him so much that they did not want to escape alone. They insisted that the Apotheosis Realm Elder at the helm not start the city and wait for Qin Yu to enter the city so that they could escape together. It made sense for them to think this way. Although the space city seemed clumsy, its Dharma array was powerful. In fact, it was the fastest and had the most abundant supplies, so it could travel a longer distance and faster. Moreover, its defensive power was stronger. However, in a few seconds, the 12 golden hairpins had missed the opportunity to escape. The doppelganger of the thick earth-winged dragon arrived at the space city almost at the same time as Qin Yu and immediately launched a peak battle above the city. For a moment, they were evenly matched and were locked in a fierce battle. Go to hell! At this time, Jiang Tian had already used the Kunpeng to catch up with Han Ming. His face was as cold as iron, and his eyes were indifferent. He attacked mercilessly. The stone tripod of myriad origins smashed down like a meteorite hitting the earth. Kong Teichu, do you still want to fight to the death? You have already dispersed a doppelganger, and your strength has been greatly reduced. How many times can you activate this tripod? I'm afraid you only have the power for one attack, right? Han Ming Zongzi knew that it was too late to dodge. He stood proudly in the void, and a trace of coldness appeared on his handsome face. He said in a cold voice, I have been in charge of this world for 2 years, and my deity has been integrated with the great path law here. Do you think you can kill me? Even if it's only one attack, it's enough to kill you. Jiang Tian's eyes were cold, and his killing intent was overflowing. The stone tripod of myriad origins smashed down in his hand. The chaotic aura surged, and the divine grade law shook the great path, making a sonorous sound. It flew out at any time, as if it could break the Milky Way and make the stars in the sky shake and fall. Countless extraterrestrial cultivators trembled under the power of the stone tripod of myriad origin. Even if they were hiding in the space city, they could still feel the terrifying power. At this time, Jiang Tian was like an ancient god who had awakened in the universe. This was the terrifying power of the stone tripod of myriad origin. Then try it. This saber is called the One Realm Saber, a quasi-divine weapon. It contains the power of the great path law around the entire earth. Today, you should be honored to die under this saber. Han Ming Zongzi shouted. He took out a long quasi-divine weapon that was as thin as autumn water and slashed toward the sky. Chapter 1781. Boom. At that moment, Han Ming Zongzi spurted out a mouthful of blood in order to activate the blade. That was the result of burning the essence of a deity and his life. Billions of rays of light were emitted from the one-world blade. Immediately, the Dharma laws on Earth seemed to have been mobilized. The battlefield within a 1,000-mile radius was swept by a terrifying energy tide. All the falling stars, asteroids, battleships and Dharma treasures were turned into ashes and smoke, dispersing into the air after that attack. The energy tide was only a prelude. Then, a giant image like a virtual earth appeared in front of the blade. That virtual earth was 10 miles wide. Essence chi was everywhere and Dharma laws were rumbling. There were mountains and rivers on it. Every blade of grass, every tree, every bird and every beast were vivid and lifelike. It moved towards Jiang Tian with a thunderous force. He had created a world with one slash. How terrifying was the power of a world! Even though he hadn't activated a real planet, he had extracted thousands of Dharma laws from that world. Even if only half of them were turned into an earth-shattering attack, it was still extremely terrifying. It definitely had the power to destroy the sun, the moon and planets. Zongzi is invincible. Zongzi has become the master of this world. He's like the son of heaven and earth. Who can stop him? Kong Teichu will definitely die. At that moment, the cultivators in the entire planet were in an uproar. Countless soul formation grand cultivators, nascent soul cultivators and golden core warriors knelt on the ground and worshipped him. They had 100 times more confidence in him. Is this the power of a sacred soul formation cultivator? That's terrifying. Senior Taichu, this time, the cultivators and mortals on earth were worried for Jiang Tian. Even Zhao Xueqing's heart almost jumped out of her throat. She held the broken saber in her hand, wanting to join the battle to help Jiang Tian, but she was firmly blocked by the large black dog. Don't worry, madam. Senior Taichu has encountered such a grand divine power in the ruins of deities before. It was Tsang Ming, the ancestral patriarch of the ruins of deities. The black dog said. It's similar to Tsang Ming's attack, but Earth has just recovered its spirit chi and its Dharma laws are 10 times tougher than the deity ground. Han Ming Zongzi's attack is 10 times more terrifying than Tsang Ming's. Jiang Tian's face turned slightly cold, but he immediately revealed a look of disdain and snorted coldly. If I used the strength of the ruins of immortality to fight against the power of this world, I would most likely have to avoid it somewhat. Unfortunately, I've already broken through 2 levels after 5 days of seclusion. My divine body, divine infant, divine law, and divine soul have all reached greater mastery. I'm like the child of a true god. The power of the stone cauldron of myriad origin is also 100 times greater than before. What is there to fear? As soon as he finished speaking, Jiang Tian ascended into the sky and stood above the mother stone cauldron. His foot pierced through the clouds and split the sky as he ruthlessly stomped down. Instantly, the chaotic source cauldron expanded abruptly to cover an area of a few tens of kilometers, and it was like a lofty mountain that was rugged and precipitous. However, one could still notice that the cauldron, 2 handles, and 3 legs seemed to contain the Tao that gave birth to 1, 1 gave birth to 2, 2 gave birth to 3, and 3 gave birth to all things in the world. It also exuded the aura of the beginning of all things. It was full of vitality as if it could split the world apart and breed all things. Around the cauldron, there was a chaotic aura lingering and surging. It hung down like silk and swept across like a waterfall. There were many sparkling and translucent spots of light that were extremely bright and dazzling, as if they were rivers of stars. Its power was extremely great, and its power was extremely condensed and vast. A single strand could crush a mountain, and a wisp could sweep across a continent. Han Ming Zongzi had activated the power of a world, but it was only a minor kiliacosm. However, the power of Jiang Tian's stone cauldron of myriad origin was comparable to a greater kiliacosm. It contained countless minor kiliacosms that Han Ming had struck out, and its power was more than 10 times or even 100 times that of the opponent. When Han Ming saw this scene, he couldn't help but be shocked and his eyes were about to split open. When an expert made a move, one would know whether or not he was an expert. He immediately judged that this was the true power of the stone cauldron of myriad origin. The power of a world that he had slashed out couldn't block it at all. Under the suppression of the stone cauldron of myriad origin, the miniature version of Earth was like a fragile chicken egg under a boulder. It didn't even last for a second before it suddenly collapsed. In the deafening noise that sounded like the end of the world and the collapse of the world, countless Dharma laws and fragments of the Great Path danced in the air like flowers scattered by a fairy. At that moment, the terrifying light of destruction tore through the sky and rushed to tens of thousands of miles away. It was as if the gods of creation had waved their hands and flattened the asteroid belts. The remaining 3 space cities were like kicked footballs, rolling dozens of kilometers away. Even Earth, which was hundreds of thousands of miles away, was affected. Countless mountains collapsed and rivers stopped flowing. If it weren't for the fact that the creatures on Earth were hiding in solid bunkers engraved with countless rune arrays, the aftermath alone would have caused hundreds or even tens of millions of casualties. Even so, people still felt very uncomfortable. Mortals were better off, but almost all the cultivators were pale and vomiting blood. Many people fainted on the spot and fell to the ground. That was because the great path in the world was surging and stirring up the essence chi. Fortunately, the fluctuation didn't last for long. The Dharma laws and fragments of the Great Path quickly surged in all directions. The Dharma laws and Great Path in the world seemed to have become a lot stronger in an instant. If it had been a piece of iron before, it was now like refined steel, transforming into the Great Path. The essence of the soul formation cultivators and their divine powers was the creation of the world. They borrowed the power of the Dharma laws and Great Path in the world and refined it into themselves. Under Jiang Tian's attack, the Dharma laws and Great Path of Han Ming's Earth were destroyed, causing them to be utterly defeated. They returned to the world and transformed into the Great Path again, strengthening and completing the Dharma laws of the world. Han Ming was hit by the backlash. He opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. He screamed again and again. The world blade dimmed and was full of cracks, as if it would collapse in the next moment. Seeing that the stone cauldron of myriad origin was coming at him like a mountain, he didn't have time to escape. He didn't even have time to take out the other quasi-sacred weapons to fight back. He was directly hit by the stone cauldron of myriad origin, which pressed him down for more than 100 miles and penetrated many ships. Poof poof. Han Ming spat out blood. His hair was disheveled and he was in a mess. There were countless fractures all over his body. The Dharma laws of chaos went into his divine treasures like gangrene attached to the bones and wantonly strangled his divine body. After 3 seconds, he couldn't stand it anymore and exploded. Jiang Tian had already caught up with him and stepped on his divine soul, which was already very condensed and was like a clone, crushing it to pieces. He was Han Ming, the clan master of the Beihan sect, the top divine clan in the Mizar planet region, and an elite on the Star River role in a millennium. He died just like that. The 9-tailed ice phoenix under him was as powerful as him, but it also didn't last for more than a second before it was smashed to pieces. Clatter, clatter, clatter. At that moment, seeing this scene, countless cultivators from other planets were terrified. They were trembling and their teeth were chattering crazily. Chapter 1782. That was the 3rd star list elite that had died. Besides, 4 elites had joined forces to attack Jiang Tian, but Jiang Tian was still able to turn the tables. The death of Han Ming Zongzi meant that the entire colonization plan of the Beihan sect had been ruined. Qin Yu and Zhang Xian had led the immortal sect to help because Han Ming had offered them a huge reward. However, colonizing Earth was not part of their plan. They had only planned to build a few fairies on the lifeless planets in the solar system. Now that Han Ming Zongzi was dead, who would fulfill their promise? Besides, Qin Yu was the only elite left. How could she be a match for Jiang Tian? For a moment, the fighting spirit of the entire Big Dipper sect was extinguished. Retreat. Han Xing didn't have the slightest intention of avenging his elder brother, only deep fear. He shouted loudly, activating the majestic city of Cloud Sky. Qinyu Zongzi, don't fight. He even kindly reminded him of this. Fuck you. Do I want to fight? Qinyu Zongzi wanted to cry. At the moment, the Earth Dragon had captured 2 of the 12 golden hairpins, but he had to save them. He couldn't risk his life to escape. That was his character. Although he was fickle in love, he was deeply in love with his cultivation companions. He would risk his life for them. This was the reason why Jiang Tian wanted to kill Qin Yu at the end. He was too attached and had too many ties, so he would be easily restrained. After killing Han Ming, Jiang Tian did not say anything else. His body flashed, turned into a golden rainbow, and charged toward Qin Yu Zongzi. Before he arrived, the divine plate on his back rotated, and a copious and irresistible suction force attacked. The thick earth winged dragon turned into a stream of surging mysterious yellow thick earth qi and poured into the divine plate, causing the divine plate to shine even brighter, making it seem even more vast and brilliant. Run! Qin Yu rejoiced in her heart when she saw the thick earth winged dragon flash past. She had just given the order to flee with the other girls. However, her sharp and vast divine sense sensed that Jiang Tian was attacking at an incomparable speed. It was completely possible for him to reach them first even if he moved later. She could not help but be greatly alarmed. No. Fuck. At this moment, Qin Yu's eyes were about to split open. His handsome face was filled with determination, and he threw out the folding fan in his hand. On the surface of the folding fan was a picture of vast rivers and mountains. Although it did not have any offensive power, it was the most powerful defensive holy weapon. It was created by a supreme master of the limitless sect in antiquity times, who had refined a vast continent into it. It was famous in the entire Alcade star area. As for the fan ribs, they were formed from 13 flying swords. They were all top-grade Dao artifacts, and could even reach the level of a half-step sacred artifact. There were countless sacred laws carved into them. As soon as the treasure appeared, the surface of the fan opened up. Mountains rose, rivers flowed, and oceans surged. Even a demi-saint would find it hard to break free in a short time if they fell into the painting. As for supreme divine transformation realm cultivators, they would be trapped for millions of years until they turned into dust. Many flying swords emitted colorful lights. They were like rainbows as they pierced through the sky and tore through space. Spatial cracks that were thousands of meters long meandered around them as frightening spatial gales erupted. Kill this villain. Kong Teichu, you bullied women. You are a human being. You will die a horrible death. At the same time, the 12 golden hairpins also wore cold expressions. Their beautiful eyes were filled with hatred and murderous intent. Dao weapons and quasi-saint weapons clanged in their hands, as if true gods were awakening. Then they soared into the sky and attacked Jiang Tian. Although Qin Yu Zongzi was promiscuous, the women under his command were not weak. They were all of extraordinary backgrounds and were very talented. Most of the Dharma treasures in their hands were bells, colorful silk, flower baskets, mirror, bracelets, jade plates, and so on. But in fact, they were all top-grade Dao artifacts. More than 20 Dao artifacts and Dao artifacts, plus a real sacred artifact, even if it was only a defensive one, were launched together. How terrifying was that? The dark green jade bracelet transformed into a 10,000 feet long heavenly dragon, tearing at Jiang Tian. The bell suddenly expanded, surrounded by green lightning, thunder rumbled, and lightning shot out explosively, slashing at Jiang Tian. Besides, they knew how powerful Jiang Tian was. At the moment, many of them were burning their essence and blood. After that, the gods would suffer from the backlash and their cultivation would drop. They were trying to kill Jiang Tian in one attack. Even if they couldn't kill him, they would at least injure him to buy time for them to escape. At that moment, surges of earth-shattering energy swept across the alien battlefield. Each of them was comparable to an attack from a peak-stage soul formation cultivator. They came from all directions and covered Jiang Tian with an energy that could destroy everything. Even a sacred-grade divine transformation realm warrior would be in a difficult position when facing such a force. Jiang Tian laughed in the face of such terrifying attacks. In front of everyone's shocked gaze, the divine disc behind Jiang Tian spun crazily and his Dharma power rose. He quickly broke through the nascent soul level and reached a terrifying and unbelievable level. Boom! Jiang Tianwan tossed out the myriad origin cauldron like a shot put. Instantly, chaotic chi swept through space while the laws rumbled, and it minced everything apart. It was like a meteor had struck the ground, and it easily tore apart the vast landscape painting, causing that side of the world to almost collapse completely. Numerous flying swords, flower baskets, bells, treasured mirrors, and bracelets were shaken to the point of being blasted 500 kilometers away, and the one at the front even cracked and was destroyed on the spot. No matter how hard Qin Yu and the 12 golden hairpins tried to control them, it was useless. Bang bang bang. At that moment, regardless of whether it was the fan face that was said to have an invincible defense, or the flying sword fan bone, or the jade bracelet that contained the blood essence of the heavenly dragon, or the bell infused with the 9 heavens' divine thunder, they were all shattered by Jiang Tian's attack. They didn't even last for a second. How? How is that possible? Qin Yu and the 12 golden hairpins were terrified and trembled. Jiang Tian's attack was like an ancient god attacking Mount Buzhou or Pangu splitting the world. Its power was completely beyond Qin Yu and the 12 golden hairpins' imagination. The soul formation elders who were running away and the mortal cultivators on Earth who were watching the battle were all dumbfounded and couldn't believe it. That was a folding fan, a defensive sacred weapon. Even if it couldn't release the full power of a Void Return Supreme Saint, it would at least be equivalent to 30%. Any soul formation cultivator or nascent soul cultivator would be able to defeat all soul formation cultivators with a sacred weapon. Not even a dozen soul formation cultivators working together would be able to stop them. Sacred weapons were too powerful. They were related to the sacred grade Dharma laws or the real Grand Tao. Normal Tao artifacts couldn't compare. It could even be said that sacred weapons were sometimes the clones of the Void Return Saints and could kill on behalf of the heavenly saints. In the Beidou planet region, apart from the Grand Elders and Xian ancestors who had lived for tens of thousands of years and were almost at the Void Return level, nobody could resist its terrifying power. I don't believe it. The giant cauldron flew toward Jiang Tian once again, wanting to smash it. Qin Yu's eyes widened in anger. Waves of dazzling holy flames burst out from the deity's body. A holy talisman floated above her head and burned without wind. His energy, which had been declining, suddenly rose and became even more powerful than before. He was burning his god's blood essence and activating a sacrificial holy talisman that the higher-ups of the holy sect had given him. He activated his Dharma power to the limit and made a gesture with both of his hands. He controlled the vast miles of river and mountain painting that was already broken and many flying swords to attack Jiang Tian again. Chapter 1783. Zongzi, stop. Kong Teichu, you forced our Zongzi to such a state. You deserve to die. At this moment, the eyes of the 12 golden hairpins were filled with anger and tears of blood. Some screamed and some cursed Jiang Tian loudly. Sacred weapons weren't ordinary weapons. Even soul formation grand cultivators could only use them once. Even though Qin Yu was a peak-stage sacred soul formation cultivator, he would have to pay a heavy price if he wanted to launch a second attack. His grade and level would be lowered and his foundation would be damaged. As expected, crack crack, Qin Yu's hand withered at a speed visible to the naked eye, as if all his energy and blood had been sucked away by the folding fan. First, it was his hand, then his arm, chest, limbs, organs and head. In the end, Qin Yu's entire body had turned into a bag of bones. He no longer had the appearance of being as handsome as a god and as elegant as an immortal. If it weren't for the fact that his heart was still beating, many people would have thought that he was already dead. However, the folding fan seemed to have absorbed enough. Above the fan bone flying swords, endless rays of light once again bloomed. Tens of thousands of rays of golden light, thousands of strands of auspicious qi, a vast and mighty divine aura suddenly appeared in the void once again, attacking towards Jiang Tian. The surface of the fan was like a vast continent that rose up, defending against Jiang Tian's attacks behind the flying swords. Terrifying fluctuations of laws shook the entire starry sky. Its power shook the heavens for thousands of miles, causing the stars to tremble and billions of people to kneel on the ground. Clang. Jiang Tian chuckled and smashed the cauldron of the myriad stone cauldron. Then, the 13 fan rib flying swords were crushed as if they were made of paper. Then, he stepped into the void with the giant cauldron in his hand. His foot landed on the mountain of the myriad miles of mountains and rivers painting, causing the painting made up of worlds to tremble slightly. Jiang Tian seemed to be an ancient deity who had created the chaos. The ground collapsed, the mountains and rivers were broken and countries were destroyed. Even the universe couldn't withstand it. Boom, boom. Jiang Tian swung the myriad stone cauldron and struck the myriad miles of mountains and rivers, painting 3 times in a row. This saint-level defensive magic treasure could no longer withstand the impact and shattered. Qin Yu, on the other hand, was shaken to the point of spitting out blood from his mouth due to the recoil. Amidst the terrifying sounds, terrifying cracks appeared on his divine treasures and divine body as though they were about to crumble. Kong Teichu, you seriously injured my Zongzi. You deserve to die. The 12 golden hairpins were also heavily injured, and they let out earth-shattering roars. At this time, the beautiful 12 golden hairpins no longer had their usual appearance. Their clothes were dyed with blood, their hair was disheveled, and their beautiful eyes were filled with tears of blood. Their charming faces were twisted with hatred and killing intent that overflowed into the sky. They were like evil spirits that had walked out from hell. Let's fight this little bastard. The 12 golden hairpins burned their blood essence in unison as they controlled their Tao artifacts and shot towards Jiang Tian like rays of light piercing through the sun. At this time, divine light shone brightly and laws rumbled. Anyone who faced this beautiful and charming woman would probably hold back a little. They would not take their lives. However, Jiang Tian did not hold back at all. He just waved his sleeve gently. The terrifying and unimaginable chaotic aura and laws surged out like raging waves crashing against the shore. Even divine-grade laws were divided into strong and weak ones. The chaotic divine laws were said to be the strongest, far surpassing all saint-grade, celestial-grade, and even other divine-grade laws. Even if the true deity fetus of the central galaxy was here, he would not be able to withstand it. Moreover, the 12 golden hairpins had not even reached the saint grade. Crackle! The 12 golden hairpins exploded in the air like a string of firecrackers. They were immediately killed. Before they could use the substitution sacred talisman, they were swallowed by Jiang Tian with the Taotai divine law. In the future, he could absorb and refine them to become supreme resources for his cultivation. Kong Teichu. At this moment, Qin Yu's eyes were filled with astonishment and sorrow. She had never imagined that her 12 companions would die with a wave of Jiang Tian's sleeve. At this moment he was full of regret. Even the water of 3 rivers and 5 oceans would not be able to wash away the bitterness of regret. If he had known this would happen, he would never have followed the Beihan sect to invade the solar system. In the end, he didn't get anything and even lost his lover. His hatred for Jiang Tian was monstrous, and he really wanted to tear Jiang Tian into pieces to vent his hatred. But in the next moment, his body and mind were enveloped by deep fear, and his entire body trembled uncontrollably. Jiang Tian had broken a sacred weapon and killed a sacred-grade soul formation cultivator with a flick of his finger. He couldn't even keep the substitution's sacred talisman. The power Jiang Tian had shown was far beyond his imagination. Even in the Big Dipper star field, throughout the ages, no one had been able to do so. Besides, he had already burned his divine power and used the sacrificial sacred talisman when he activated the picture of thousands of miles of rivers and mountains for the second time. His power had dropped to the mid-stage soul formation cultivator and even his grade had dropped to the 9th level. He was only half as powerful as before. Besides, he had lost his sacred weapon and had nothing else. How could he withstand Jiang Tian's attack? Don't kill me. I'm the Zongzi of the divine sect in the Yaoguang planet region. If you kill me, no one in the Yaoguang planet region or the entire Beidou planet region will be able to tolerate you. Kong Teichu, Divine Lord Jiang, I promise you that if you let me go, I'll mediate and stop the Beidou planet region from invading the solar system. I can make a divine soul contract with you. Qin Yu hurriedly shouted. Hearing this, many soul formation cultivators felt sad. That was an elite on the galaxy list, the Zongzi of the divine sect, but he had to bow down to a cultivator from a remote planet region. Some people even pounded the ground and wailed. When had the Grand Divine Sect ever suffered such humiliation? It's too late. Jiang Tian's face was as cold as iron. He stomped him into a meat patty, and even the space city below was penetrated. Then he scanned the crowd and said with a cold voice, "Since Han Ming Zongzi instigated the Beidou monsters to invade Earth, we've become enemies. Not only you, but the entire Beidou planet region will be massacred one day. Until the 7 planets and thousands of sects surrender." At that moment, the entire battlefield went silent. Only Jiang Tian's powerful voice could be heard. Countless cultivators from other planets, including the elders of the top divine sects, were dumbfounded and shocked by Jiang Tian's power. In the vast and desolate universe, cold winds howled, and powerful energy storms radiated and engulfed everything. Outside of Earth, in the misty sky tens of thousands of kilometers high, countless severed limbs covered the entire starry sky. On the other hand, the 4 powerful divine sects had all suffered a crushing defeat. The 4 galaxy list geniuses had all fallen. More than 100 elders, divine lords, and 100,000 golden core cultivators had died. They were as terrified as rabbits facing a cosmic behemoth. Countless people on Earth looked up in shock. Even though they couldn't see what was happening in outer space, the clear images sent by the communication devices, space telescopes, and satellites, as well as the explanations of Lian Sheng and Situ Shao, everyone knew that the extraterrestrial coalition army was finished. The 4 elites on the galaxy list died just like that? The 4 most powerful divine sects were defeated just like that? Many cultivators from other planets still couldn't believe it, especially Luo Qin, the sect master of the Sacred Era Sword sect. He was also one of the divine sects and belonged to the Wuji sect. He had once given his partner, Purple Chestnut Fairy, to Qin Yu and became her subordinate, so he knew the power of those imperishable sections. Even if they're not dead, they've been severely injured after this battle. I'm afraid they won't be able to come back for a while. A cultivator from the Alcade planet region said. Everyone knew that. When the Big Dipper army was destroyed, a new dominator rose in the universe. He would not only dominate the solar system and the South Gate 2 planets, but also the entire solar system. We won? Senior Tai Chu won? Situ Shao looked up in the sky and couldn't believe it. After all, he had met the cultivators from other planets and knew how powerful they were. But then he felt that it was unreal. We won. Senior Tai Chu won. Lotus Lord nodded. He has created another miracle. Jiang Changing and the other cultivators from Tianqing School looked up into the sky. Over there was a figure shrouded in endless chaotic energy. He stood proudly in the starry sky of the universe, as if an ancient god had descended upon the mortal world. Chapter 1784. Meanwhile, on Jupiter. Meanwhile, Han Xianxia had already landed on the surface of Jupiter with his people in a glamorous space battleship. 200 people from Earth were with him, including Cheng Tian, a warrior of the Hua Xia Defenders Union. They were all carefully selected people with good foundations and experts in various fields. According to the plan, they would go deep into the star ocean and reach some planet regions that the Beidou planet region didn't control. Run! We've lost at the front line. The 4 heavenly talents are dead and 2 space cities have been destroyed. Kong Teichu might come here. But the 4 most powerful divine sects had also built some supply bases on Jupiter, which would be turned into a port of the universe in the future. But then, many space battleships rose from the ground and fled into the depths of the universe in a panic, not bothering Han Xianxia and the others. Divine Prince, is the battle on Earth over? Qin Shi Fairy turned around. That crystal battleship had also left some Dharma artifacts on the battlefield, so they could clearly see what was going on the battlefield. She had watched Jiang Tian defeat the 4 most powerful divine sects and kill the 4 heavenly talents on the galaxy list, dumbfounded the entire time. Jiang Tian's grace, his invincibility, caused her to be immersed in shock for a long time, unable to come back to her senses. Her heart was filled with disbelief. Yuan Jiankong heaved a sigh and said regretfully, "We've left too early. We left too early. In fact, the current Earth is more suitable for cultivation than many of the cultivation planets in the Big Dipper. Why don't we go back now? With Senior Taichu's great sense of justice and extreme rationality, he wouldn't blame us for deserting the battle. Battles in the Star Ocean and wars in the universe were 100 times more dangerous and cruel than the wars on Earth in history. On Earth, there weren't many races that went extinct, and the level of civilization before a race and a country was usually on the same level. But in the depths of the universe, the extinction of planets and civilizations was common. It could be considered normal. That was because the level of civilization between different planets and planet regions was too different. For example, Soul Formation Grand Cultivators could destroy all the life on a planet with one attack, and void-returning saints could crush planets with a flick of their fingers. If there were no great saints of equal strength on this planet, then there would be no chance for them to put up a fight. It was precisely because of this that running away from the battlefield wasn't shameful. It wasn't because one was afraid of death, but because it was for the continuation of the civilization. Moreover, Jiang Changing had approved of Han Che's escape, and he had also taken away 200 Earthlings with him. Son of God. Yuan Jiankong looked over with joy, only to see Han Che Shenxi's expression becoming more and more serious. Everyone, Senior Taichu is in big trouble, big trouble. Han Shenxi's face changed drastically, and he quickly said, he killed a few substitute sacred talismans, and the masters behind them will soon sense it and go to Earth to kill Senior Taichu. At that time, the Earth will become a real Azura battlefield. The real master? You're talking about those returned to void stage great sages. Celestial Maiden Chin, she suddenly came to a realization, and her seductive face was already as pale as a sheet of paper. Her voice trembled as she said, wasn't it said that a true return to void stage great sage hasn't appeared in the Big Dipper star region for the past 10,000 years? This appearance refers to a new great sage. Indeed, there hasn't been a new great sage in the Big Dipper star region for the past 10,000 years, but what about 10,000 years ago? There were ancestral patriarchs. Han Che Shenxi's face was full of panic as he hurriedly commanded the starship to take off again. He said in horror, even if they haven't reached the true return to void stage, they still have one foot in it and can be called half-saints and quasi-saints. Most of them are wandering in the depths of the galaxy, looking for opportunities to break through to a higher level. They are the real invincible and immortal. They are far from what Senior Taichu can fight against. Earth is really in danger this time. Celestial Maiden Shen Shi, Yuan Jiankong, and Elder Pan all looked sad after hearing this. This was the cruel truth of the universe. Thousands of Daos were fighting and cruel strife. Many vigorous civilizations would be cruelly strangled in the cradle by powerful beings while they were still weak. In the extraterritorial battlefield, Jiang Tian had broken Qin Yu's body with one stomp. Even the magnificent space city had a 10-mile-wide hole. However, Qin Yu had 5 high-grade substitute holy talismans with him. They had repaired his body, God, and God's soul time after time. Therefore, he didn't die on the spot. Under Jiang Tian's godlike feat, Qin Yu kept struggling and howling. Just as his body was reconstructed, the law of primal chaos would grind it into a pulp. This cycle repeated over and over again. Jiang Tian lowered his head and looked at the struggling lump of flesh with a cold face. Kong Teichu, do you really have to kill me? Why do you have to be so aggressive? Qin Yu howled and begged with a face full of hatred. I'm aggressive? Jiang Tian stomped on him again and turned him into a pile of flesh. He said with a cold look, if I lose today, will you be merciful? You'll definitely wash the earth with blood and not even an ant will be left. You'll turn the earth into a real death planet and a backyard for your cultivation. When Qin Yu condensed into a human form again, his face was as ferocious as a demon's. He shouted, Kong Teichu, you're digging your own grave. You don't know how powerful the Northern Dipper Galaxy is. The power of the Supreme Divine Sex is beyond your imagination. They're real existences that stand proudly in the star ocean and look down on billions of stars. Sooner or later, the sect masters and ancestral patriarchs will attack you and the earth 100 times more cruelly than you did today. He struggled crazily. Thousands of rays of divine light were constantly nourishing and repairing his body. You talk too much. Even if that day really comes, it's a pity that you won't be able to see it. Jiang Tian smiled and stomped on him again. That was Qin Yu's last substitute divine talisman. When he died, he would be completely destroyed and even deities couldn't save him. But then, an old voice suddenly came from the depths of the universe. Fellow cultivator, please stop. That voice was like the voice of Hong Meng in the universe. It wasn't loud, but it shook the sky. In an instant, it echoed across the entire solar system. Both the mortal cultivators on Earth and the cultivators from other planets who had escaped to the periphery of the solar system heard it at the same time. He's too powerful. A doomsday overlord. At that moment, even Elder Hui Yen and Tang Linglong, who were guarding the fire worship sect in West Earth, Ding Lai, Ding Lingdang and Xiao Yingluo in Star World and other multidimensional worlds felt that terrifying voice. They all looked in the direction of Earth with shock and worry in their eyes. It was extremely clear. It was shocking. Is that our grand cultivator? Hanqing Zongzi was startled. Hanch Shensi, who had already flown out of Jupiter, was also startled. His pupils contracted and he said, "He's here." His words have spread across the entire solar system. He must be a demi-saint. But he didn't stop. The interstellar battleship turned into a beam of bright light and shot into the dangerous depths of the universe at an even faster speed. Senior Tai Chu, you must hold on. At that moment, Cheng Tian and the other Earthlings on the interstellar battleship looked back at Earth with tears in their eyes. They were full of worry and reluctance. Cheng Tian knew that this might be the last time she looked back at Earth and Jiang Tian in her life. She only felt despair when she thought of Hanch Shensi's words. The so-called 4 elites on the galaxy list were only the most outstanding group of people in the Big Dipper in the past 1,000 years. But after all, they were only the overlords of the younger generation, not the real power of the most powerful divine sects. However, there were even more terrifying existences in the past 10,000 years or even beyond that. The power of one person was too small in front of those terrifying ancestral patriarchs, who were like a mountain. After all, Earth had just recovered its spirit chi and was like a baby in swaddling clothes. Although its future was limitless, it was still too weak at the moment. Many Big Dipper cultivators, such as Han Xing, Bing Jian and the others, who were fleeing in panic, came to a stop one after another, as if victory was already in their hands. They laughed arrogantly and looked back at Jiang Tian. Kong Teichu, I told you that you would get bloody revenge if you resisted. I just didn't expect it to come so quickly. Why do you have to do this? You struggled, but in the end, you were just trampled under the feet of the ancestral patriarchs like ants. In the end, you turned into dust and a few bones. Ha. Chapter 1785. Who's that? At that moment, overlords Lotus, Jiang Changing, Sidu Shao and the other overlords on Earth were terrified. At that moment, the owner of the old voice was millions of miles away from Earth. However, everyone could sense his voice and it spread throughout the solar system. His strength was many times stronger than many of the geniuses. While Hanch Divine Prince was shocked, the overlords on Earth were panicking and the overlords from other planets were looking at him with joy. Jiang Tian turned around and looked deep into the universe. The old man came from the resplendent group of stars. He wore hemp clothes that were sewn and mended. Patches were stacked on top of each other, making him look like a beggar's ragged clothes. The old man looked extremely old and his skin was as rough as tree bark. His energy also seemed to be extremely weak, like a candle in the wind or a lamp that had run out of oil. It had nothing to do with being powerful. However, it was precisely such an old man who crossed a distance of 1,000,000 miles with every step he took. The stars beneath his feet were like chess pieces, incomparably tiny. In just a few seconds he had crossed the edge of the solar system, the orbit of Neptune, Uranus, Saturn, the mother planet, the asteroid belt and the orbit of Venus, and arrived at Earth's door. Behind him were a few Zongzi of the divine sect surrounded by divine light. They were as powerful as Han Ming and Qin Yu. They were all elites on the galaxy list. And yet, those elites were extremely humble when facing the old man. Their eyes were full of respect, as if they were about to kneel down and worship him. Ahem, fellow Taoist, please give this old man some face and let Qin Yu off this time. He's still a naughty kid and doesn't know how terrifying the Star Ocean is. If he has offended you in any way, this old man will apologize to you on his behalf. The old man coughed as if he was a tuberculosis patient, pleading for leniency for Qin Yu. Taishin ancestor, please save me. Qin Yu slapped the ground and begged for help, as if he had met his savior. Idiot! You're only 3,000 years old and a peak-stage soul formation cultivator, yet you think you're invincible and don't take the elites of the Star Ocean seriously. Now, you know how vast the world is. The old man scolded, as if he were a teacher scolding a 3-year-old child. Shall you know she was wrong? I won't dare to do it again. Qin Yu's face was full of shame. He was a peak-stage soul formation cultivator and a sacred heavenly venerate, but when he faced the old man, he didn't show any arrogance. He was like a child who had made a mistake and was about to be punished. Everyone was shocked when they heard this. On Earth, the great ancestor, the distant ancestor, and the first ancestor were regarded as the 9 generations of elders. The first ancestor was already the oldest, 9 generations back, the grandfather of the grandfather of the grandfather of the grandfather. However, what was Great Mystery Ancestor? As for this old man, he had already introduced himself. Let me tell you, fellow Taoist, this good-for-nothing is the 63rd generation great-great-great-grandson of this old man. The old man had lived like a fool for so many years. In the past 10,000 years, he was the only one in the limitless sect who had a chance of becoming a return-to-void stage great sage. If he were to die, the Wuji sect would not be able to produce a sacred soul formation realm warrior for the next 1,000 years. The old man boldly begged fellow Taoist to be magnanimous and let him go. If fellow Taoist has any compensation, feel free to tell me. The old man will do his best to satisfy you. His words were sincere and his posture was extremely humble, showing his profound self-restraint. In terms of temperament, the arrogant Han Ming Zongzi and the others were far inferior. What? He's the 63rd generation ancestral patriarch. How long does he have to live? Qin Yu had already lived for 3,000 years. Even if cultivators had long lives and got married late and had children late, this old man would still have to live for more than 60,000 years. Besides, the rotation speed and calendar of the planets in the Alcade galaxy were very different from those on Earth. 1 year might be equivalent to 2 years on Earth or even more. How long did this old man live in terms of Earth years? Thinking of this, the cultivators on Earth and the cultivators from other planets all felt their scalps tingle. This old man had such a long life and cultivated diligently all his life. He also plundered around the universe in search of opportunities. How high was his cultivation level and strength? It was unimaginable. In a blink, the ordinary cultivators on Earth felt heavy in their hearts. They knew they had met a real overlord. After the old man finished speaking, everyone looked at Jiang Tian, waiting for his decision. But Jiang Tian lowered his eyes, as if he were thinking and deciding. He still didn't lift his foot from Qin Yu's chest. Seeing that Jiang Tian didn't say anything, the old man in linen clothes smiled and said, "Fellow Taoist Jiang, you're only a mid-stage nascent soul cultivator, but you're able to fight with a peak-stage sacred soul formation cultivator. Your physique and talents are far beyond the old man's imagination. You can even dominate the world." When the old man was your age, he was still a golden core cultivator. I was watching the battle from the solar system just now and some of my old friends even bet with me that you would lose. Only the old man insisted that you would definitely win. Well, I won in the end. One of them even lost a life star to me. It's just a life planet. It's not like I can't afford to lose. A disdainful snort came from the edge of the galaxy, as if to prove what the old man in linen clothes had said. When everyone heard this, they were shocked to the extreme. They were so shocked that their souls almost left their bodies. Being able to see the battle on Earth from the edge of the solar system was like looking at a palm. That was too terrifying. Besides, the bet made by a star sector-level overlord was too outrageous. He had bet on a life planet. That was simply shocking. Besides, the old man had also revealed another important piece of information. This time, there were other overlords who were as powerful as him. Seeing that Jiang Tian still didn't intend to stop, the old man's anger disappeared. He then smiled and said, "The old man has lived for so many years and achieved nothing." In the old man's generation of the Wuji sect, the talented senior brother followed his master and became a void-returning cultivator, entering the central galaxy. The second senior brother, who loved to refine his body, also won the title of Body Saint. Even the fifth senior brother, who was the least talented and didn't like to cultivate, also inherited the Wuji sect and became the sect master of a divine sect. Only the old man was naturally undisciplined and unrestrained. He loved to wander around the Milky Way, sightseeing, chatting with friends, and accumulating some cultivation techniques. In the Star Ocean, he was called Xian Gong by Xiao. If fellow Taoist Jiang needs any cultivation techniques, just tell me. Everything can be discussed. He waved his hand. Boom. A cultivation technique scroll unfurled, and it was actually completely condensed from natural laws. It was like the celestial text of the 9 heavens, profound and profound. Every word was like a gem, boundless and unfathomable. Many people felt a splitting headache just by looking at it. They were on the verge of collapsing. However, they also felt as if the shackles in their minds had been opened. Their potential seemed to have been stimulated, and they could sublimate to the extreme. This is the cultivation art of the Scorching Sun Divine Sect, in the center of the galaxy. It's said to be able to change the structure of a star and absorb the essence of the sun. I heard that there's something wrong with the 2 stars of the South Gate. This cultivation art should be useful for you. The old man said gently, "Old Qin, you're famous for being stingy in the Beidou planet region. This is a supreme saint cultivation art that can help people reach the void returning level and become a saint in a day. We wanted to take a look at it before, but you didn't agree. Now, you're really willing to pay a lot for your precious egg." Someone ridiculed. Her voice was tender and soft, and carried a bit of laziness. Just by listening to her voice, one could tell that she was definitely a peerlessly beautiful woman. Everyone looked up and saw her. A few more people were walking slowly in the universe. One of them was a middle-aged man dressed like a scholar. His long hair was tied into a knot on top of his head and the rest was fluttering in the wind. He held a red wine gourd in his hand and took a sip from it from time to time. The other one was a beautiful woman in a palace dress. She was graceful and elegant and looked extremely sacred. There were lotuses under her feet and dharma laws were condensed. The last one was a burly old man dressed like a woodcutter. He had a red face, an open chest, and bare feet. He was carrying a giant axe and 2 bundles of firewood. Boom. When the 3 of them arrived at the battlefield outside Earth, endless power swept across the world, as if real gods had descended. Everyone on Earth felt a tremor from the depths of their souls. Their strength was God knows how many times stronger than Han Ming and the rest. They were all quasi-sages. The 4 pre-saints had arrived. They were suppressing Jiang Tian and the earth under their feet. Chapter 1786. I, Qin Pu, have always enjoyed exchanging cultivation techniques with others. I will never hide anything. Why are you so stingy? Cultivator Feng, you must have lost a bet to me, so you're slandering me. The old man in the linen robe glared at her, as if he had been wronged. The peerlessly graceful fairy Hibiscus snorted lightly in ridicule, and she couldn't be bothered to pay attention to him. The 4 of them kept talking and putting pressure on Jiang Tian, but they didn't even look at Jiang Tian, as if they didn't take Jiang Tian seriously at all. Hanch Divine Prince, who had already escaped to the edge of the solar system, suddenly recognized the person and said with a trembling voice, "Qin Pu. He's the 9th ancestral master of the 8th generation of the Wuji sect. Why is he still alive? Didn't they say he had already returned to the Tao? Qin Pu? Is he very powerful?" Cheng Tiantian was confused. Hanch Divine Prince was frightened and said with a trembling voice, Although Qin Pu wasn't a void-returned supreme saint, he was indeed a disciple of a supreme saint. His master was the supreme saint who had appeared in the Beidou planet region 100,000 years ago and swept across the world. His senior brother also became a supreme saint and followed his master into the central galaxy. Second senior brother had taken a different path. He had entered the path of cultivation through body refinement and had also reached the peak of the great sage realm. With his powerful physical body, he had traversed the sea of stars. He was known to use star regions as baths and stars as pillows. He was also famous throughout the entire Milky Way. Even his fifth senior brother, who was the least talented and didn't become a supreme saint, was also the sect master of the Wuji sect of that generation. Qin Pu was a man who was greedy and rash on the path of cultivation. He learned from many different schools and was not a specialist. However, he had entered the half-step Great Saint realm 50,000 years ago. He was known as the all-knowing and omniscient and omnipotent. He was an incomparably terrifying existence among the many half-saints and demi-saints. That's him. I once saw a record of him in the handbook of the ancestral master of the Wuji sect. He wore a linen robe and had long hair. He looked old and liked to search souls and steal cultivation arts from others. The Dharma artifact he used was a sacred weapon in the shape of a withered branch. Elder Pan Xing also called out. It was recorded in that letter that the founder of the Boundless sect was stuck at the divine transformation stage for 500 years. However, after being enlightened by Qin Pu with a few words, he was able to find and fill in the gaps. Within a day, he entered the divine transformation realm. Hearing this, the hearts of the foreign cultivators who had surrendered to Jiang Tian, including Fairy Qin Shi, sank. An old monster like Qin Pu who had lived for more than 50,000 years, a living fossil, was the legendary Grand Elder of Divine Sect. The cultivation of these people could shake the sea of stars and stir the river of stars. Their cultivation was unfathomably profound. He was already close to becoming a great sage. Half of the gods were residing in the void, and he was a half-step return to void stage cultivator. Normal soul formation stage cultivators were no match for him. Even soul formation stage cultivators at the pinnacle of the sacred grade were nothing but ants. For the other three to be able to stand side by side with Qin Pu and be on equal footing, I'm afraid their backgrounds aren't small, right? Cheng Tantian had a worried look on her face. Han Che had already compared the characteristics of the half-saints recorded in the Dharma artifact and identified the other three. The middle-aged man with a red wine gourd was the third grand elder of the Beihan sect, Fu Tonghai. The beautiful woman in a palace gown was the saintess of the banishing deity Hall, Furong Fairy. The woodcutter old man was the fourth grand elder of the Feiyang sect, Elder Qing Huang. The four of them were all pre-saints who had been famous in the Star Ocean 50,000 years ago. They were like legends and had left behind countless glorious achievements. They were regarded as the pillars of their divine sects. Countless generations ago, they were elites on the galaxy list. They were extremely talented and had created new fields in cultivation arts and divine powers. They were even the best of the elites. Even the sect masters of the divine sects had to greet them respectfully. In front of them, whether it was Gui Yufan and Guizai, or Han Ming and Qin Yu, they were all juniors many generations later. They were not worth mentioning at all. These are all the top sects of the major sections. They're the ones who suppressed the sections. Except for a few old sect masters who had reached the void return level, they were the most respected. They have also come to Earth. Could it be that the opportunities on Earth are really so important? Fairy Qin Shi was alarmed. The importance of Earth, or rather, planet destruction, was far beyond their imagination. Apparently, they didn't just want to save the descendants of their disciples. They talked about Qin Yu and the others, but in fact, they weren't that important to them. The elites on the galaxy list were refreshed once every 1,000 years. Many elites had been born in the past tens of thousands of years. The four half-saints were obviously determined to get the luck and opportunity on Earth. This also meant that the pressure Jiang Tian was facing was also unprecedentedly terrifying. Thinking of this, Fairy Qin Shi's heart fell into the abyss. Everyone could only look up quietly at the screen, waiting for Jiang Tianxia's next reaction. At this time, Elder Qin Huang's patience seemed to be exhausted. He shouted, "Taoist Qin Pu actually gave you face. Seeing that you have extraordinary talent and cultivation is not easy, we can forgive your crime. We won't even ask about the earth behind you. What else do you want? Why haven't you released Qin Yu?" That's right. If Cultivator Qin Pu hadn't stopped me, I would have taken you to the Beihan sect to pay for Han Ming's life, Fu Zonghai shouted with a frown. Let him go? Jiang Tian flicked his fingers and sneered. Do you think I'll let him go just because you say so? Who do you think you are? Ha! The four half-saints shook their heads and laughed. They weren't angry, but mocking. They were full of contempt, like a dragon facing an ant's provocation. The ignorant are fearless. After all, you were born in a poor family. The furthest you've been is the Southgate Galaxy. You've been in this abandoned galaxy for so long that you don't know how vast the universe is and how powerful the real overlords of the galaxy are. Fu Zonghai said sympathetically. Jiang Taichu, for you to be able to cultivate such combat strength in this remote and desolate place where Taoist orthodoxies have been severed, you are indeed extremely talented. Even I, this old man, am tempted to take in a talented disciple. But don't take our kindness for granted. Since you have cultivated to such a level and become the strongest in the galaxy, you should be wise. You should understand that the strong are respected and the weak are ants. You should also understand that it is not shameful for the weak to bow to the strong. Elder Qin Huang's voice was as loud as a bell, hoping to wake Jiang Tian up. That's right. My young friend Jiang, let me tell you clearly that we are different from those reckless juniors like Han Ming. We are not here to capture and refine your family's bloodline and body. Instead, we are here to borrow some of Earth's luck and opportunity to break through the barrier. Qin Pu's eyes were gentle, like an old friend chatting sincerely. In fact, the power of planet destruction hasn't disappeared yet. There are deity-grade starry sky arrays in the stars and planets with life in the surrounding 7 or 8, or even more large star regions, which gather supreme deity spirit Qi on Earth. The spirit Qi and Dharma laws will continue to strengthen. If we're lucky enough to stay on Earth, we'll definitely treat Earth as our second home and treat the creatures on Earth as our own kind. We'll even work together with you to promote high-level cultivation arts and divine powers. We'll lead the natives on Earth to build a prosperous cultivation planet, where everyone has the chance to become an immortal and become a deity. It'll become the sacred place of cultivation in this universe. As long as you let go of Qin Yu, we'll stop. This old man can guarantee your life and the bright future of Tianqing School, including your status as the Lord of the Stars. My friend, what do you think? At this moment, billions of mortal cultivators on Earth and other multidimensional worlds, as well as cultivators from other planets, were looking at Jiang Tian, waiting for his decision. In the universe, the 9 heavens and 10 earths were silent. Nothing. Jiang Tian sneered, then stepped on Qin Yu mercilessly. Qin Yu, who was lucky enough to escape from death, used up the last substitute's sacred talisman. His divine soul and body were crushed by Jiang Tian's foot and blood splashed everywhere. The heavens and the earth were deathly silent while the smile on Qin Pu's face suddenly froze, and it was replaced by gradually rising flames of rage. Chapter 1787. Kong Teichu, aren't you afraid of my wrath? How dare you kill the Big Dipper prodigy in front of us? Could it be that you think that our old arms and legs are useless, and that we aren't a match for a little brat like you? Qin Pu shouted imposingly. As for the other half-saints, their faces were cold, and their killing intent was slowly emerging. Kong Teichu isn't wise. As long as Qin Yu didn't die, he was equivalent to holding a hostage, which could make the other party hesitate to attack. With a hostage in hand, everything can be discussed slowly. Why did he kill him? He's cutting off all hope for peace. Han Xing sneered. Yeah, it's obvious that Qin Pu and the other half-saints are after something completely different from Han Ming and the others. They don't want to use Kong Teichu's body to advance. They want to live on Earth and enjoy the prosperity of the world. Kong Techu obviously has room for negotiation, but he destroyed everything with his own hands. He's too reckless. Luo Qin, the Grandmaster of the Sacred Era Sword Sect, also sneered. You're right. Many extraterrestrial cultivators nodded and sighed. Even many mortal cultivators on Earth blamed Jiang Tian secretly. The public opinion, which had been suppressed, rose again. On the internet and in the livestream rooms, there were many criticisms against Jiang Tian. Qin Pu was too good at pretending to be a nice guy. He destroyed many people's fighting spirit with just a few words. Many people hoped that they could negotiate with a half-step great saint who could cross the sea of stars and destroy planets with a flick of his finger. Even if they had to give up some territory, it would be best if they didn't fight. Negotiate. Lu Yiting, Shen Lu and his wife, Iris and her sister, and some of Jiang Tian's old friends, as well as Sasaki Haisha and other disciples, argued. You think too simply of them. As long as they enter Earth's territory, it's like installing nuclear bombs on Earth. Earth will be controlled by them. Even if they suddenly change their mind and completely take over Earth, we can't do anything. Qin Mu is just confusing people. Just like Han Ming back then, on the surface, he was helping Earth and creating a prosperous era together, but behind his back, he had the idea of taking Earth for himself. Besides, Senior Taichu has killed so many of their prodigies and divine lords, and defeated so many of their armies. There's a blood feud between them. How can you expect them to spare us and show mercy? That's not necessarily true. From beginning to end, we didn't resist at all. We welcomed the alien cultivators with open arms and legs. The Myth Alliance, the Tianqing School, and him, Kong Techu, were the enemies of the alien cultivators. The commoners had no enmity with them. Qin Pu is a dignified half-saint, a true expert. He's like a god in the heavens. Why would he bother with ants like us? Someone spoke in a strange tone. If anyone dares to speak of capitulationism again, the Myth Alliance will definitely investigate to the end and kill them without mercy. Shen Mange was so angry that she wanted to vomit blood. She spoke out against the injustice for Jiang Tian and suppressed these voices. Since when did Jiang Tian fight for him? It was all for the sake of their homeland. With his current power and resources, he could take his disciples and family across the Star Ocean and go straight to the Central Galaxy, leaving Earth behind. The reason why he stayed and fought with the alien cultivators was completely selfless, for the sake of the 6 billion people. Yet now Jiang Tian's resistance, his disregard for his own safety, was condemned, ridiculed, and mocked like this. The voices on the internet stopped for a while. These people all shut up. After all, the situation of the war wasn't clear yet. Jiang Tian was still the leader of the Myth Alliance and the leader of the most powerful sect on Earth. He also had deep cooperation with the countries around the world, so it wasn't difficult to find them. However, they also believed that Kong Techu's tyranny would soon end. When Shen Mange and the others saw that there was no more reaction on the internet, they also looked at the sky with heavy hearts. At this moment, facing the terrifying energy of the alien half-saint, Jiang Tian put his hands behind his back and smiled coldly. I killed him. Qin Yu dared to covet Earth and offend Kong Techu. So what if I killed him? Not only him but also all of you. If you don't leave the solar system, I'll kill you with my sword. You even want to kill an old man? Qin Pu was stunned. He looked at Jiang Tian from the sky in surprise, as if he couldn't believe that Jiang Tian was so strong. How laughable. You overestimate yourself. You're just an ant. How can you shake a mountain? Fu Songhai smiled contemptuously and sipped wine from the red wine gourd. There was still pity in his eyes, as if Jiang Tian were an ant that didn't know what was good for him. Cut the crap. Just kill him. Although his body is amazing, he doesn't seem to be very smart. He wants to kill a half-saint. That's brainless. Elder Qin Huang seemed to be a little impatient and laughed at the sky. This cute little person is really, really interesting. Although the beautiful woman dressed in palace attire, Fairy Farong, wouldn't laugh out loud, she would still cover her mouth and giggle. She laughed so hard that the branches of the flowers trembled and the waves rippled. Qin Pu's patience was also exhausted by Jiang Tian. He snorted and waved his sleeve. Boom! The sky exploded and the alien battlefield within 1,000 miles shook. The entire universe seemed to be about to explode. An extremely dazzling river of stars flew out from the bottom of his sleeve. It was like a vast and real world, and it carried an abundant and unstoppable force as it tore apart the laws and shattered the Grand Tao, and it pressed down towards Jiang Tian. Qin Pu was proficient in all techniques, and what he used was to mobilize the laws of another galaxy to suppress Jiang Tian. It was forceful and domineering, and there was nothing fancy about it. Clearly, he wanted to suppress Jiang Tian to death in a simple and straightforward manner. With just a wave of his sleeve, Qin Pu displayed the terrifying power of a half-saint. Even if 10 prodigious Sir Gods were here, they would probably be crushed into dust. There was no logic to it. It was just killing with pure strength. Any divine powers and dharma laws were useless. Kill! Jiang Tian's face was as cold as steel. His battle intent had also reached an unprecedented height. He stomped his foot, causing the space to tremble. Together with the Kunpeng's extreme speed divine law, he used the chaotic airflow of the myriad stone cauldron as a blade to cut through the waves. He soared into the sky and pierced through the galaxy. Crack crack. The inconceivably vigorous and tough laws of primal chaos morphed into numerous sharp blades in the void, and like a cutting machine, they forcibly cut the torrent of stars formed by the laws of stars into two halves in the vast battlefield outside the realm. In the end, Jiang Tian was only 100 miles away from Qin Pu, and he had already entered the killing range of the chaotic law. Good weapon and divine power. Qin Pu complimented, but then his face turned into endless greed and viciousness. With this attack, you're on par with Emperor Zhongli. You can be considered the most powerful overlord below the half-saint level. Even I wasn't as powerful as you when I was your age. The giant cauldron in your hand is even more powerful than a sacred weapon and can be considered a deity artifact. Unfortunately, Kang Teichu, you don't know that a half-saint has surpassed the level of a divine lord and half of a deity is in the void. The gap between you and a soul formation cultivator is immeasurable. And you're only a high-level nascent soul cultivator. The gap between our power isn't something a weapon can make up for. As he spoke, he had already flicked his finger. Bang! His thumb seemed to have expanded and became the size of a mountain, hitting the myriad stone cauldron. There was a loud rumble. A loud sound akin to a great bell resounded throughout the universe. The myriad origin cauldron was actually forcefully sent flying out of his hand. Jiang Tian's hand was cracked and blood flowed out, dyeing the sky red. Even the powerful chaotic divine body was badly mutilated and he couldn't even hold a weapon. At that moment, Jiang Tian's supporters on Earth, including Jiang Changing, Lian Sheng and Sidu Shao, felt their hearts sink. Shen Mange, Sasaki Haisha and the others even turned pale and exclaimed, "Bang!" Qin Pu flicked his finger again. Jiang Tian was unable to endure it any longer. Boundless chaotic airflow surged out from the surface of his body, yet it was instantly destroyed. His entire body was like a shooting star that shot through the sky and smashed through numerous meteors before being blasted to the edge of the outer realm battlefield. Even though Jiang Tian had a phenomenal success chaotic divine body, he almost spurted out blood. There were many terrifying cracks on his body, as if he were a broken piece of porcelain. 2 fingers. Qin Pu had defeated Jiang Tian. At that moment, everyone who witnessed this was speechless. They couldn't believe it and their eyes almost popped out. Chapter 1788. Impossible! How could the sect leader of the Taichu Alliance be defeated with a single attack? That's impossible. I don't believe it. Yeah, the Taichu ancestor suppressed the multidimensional worlds in the solar system and went to the South Gate. He was invincible. How could he be defeated today? This must be an illusion created by the grand cultivators from other planets, trying to destroy our morale. Maybe the Taichu ancestor is retreating to attract Qin Pu's attention and then kill him. Seeing Jiang Tian being knocked away by Qin Pu, countless people exclaimed and refused to believe it. They shouted agitatedly, especially Jiang Tian's fans and believers. They were extremely unwilling to accept this and tried all sorts of ways to exonerate Jiang Tian. However, the fear and uneasiness on their faces revealed the weakness in their hearts. In fact, most people didn't believe it. Jiang Tian had always moved unhindered and unrivaled, fighting boldly. When had he ever needed to feign civility and show weakness to his enemies? Just then, Jiang Tian killed the Zongzi with the cauldron and broke through the planetary state space city. But then, he could barely break Qin Pu's Dharma order and was even knocked away by 2 fingers. This meant that there was a huge gap between the power of Jiang Tian and his opponent. That's not right. How could the Taichu ancestor be defeated? His attack just then was comparable to an attack from a peak-stage soul formation cultivator. Even if he couldn't injure Qin Pu, they should be on par. How could he be knocked away? He was completely defeated. Besides, according to the information left by Han Che, Qin Pu has lived for 50,000 years. His life is too long and he should be buried up to his neck. How can he still be so powerful? Even some cultivators from the solar system, such as Lian Sheng, Hui Yan and Ding Lai, were confused. Han Shensi heaved a sigh. The cultivators of the solar system were too short-sighted after all. Before the recovery of spirit qi, nascent soul heavenly lords were the limit of cultivation. No one had reached the peak of the nascent soul level in tens of thousands of years, so naturally, no one had seen a half-saint attack. Han Shensi had never seen one either, but he was an important member of the Beihan sect after all, so he had read about it in many ancient books. That kind of monstrous power was enough to pluck the stars and grab the moon, shaking the sea of stars. Half of the gods could entrust themselves to the void at any time and become one with the great Tao laws of heaven and earth. With a raise of their hand, they could destroy the world. That was the true power of heaven and earth, the power of the world. We thought that Senior Taichu might be the reincarnation of a grand cultivator. Although he was just a nascent soul stage cultivator, he practiced supreme arts and secret arts. His nascent soul stage cultivator might be able to bridge the gap between a nascent soul stage cultivator and a half-saint with divine materials as weapons. However, after what we've seen today, a supreme nascent soul stage cultivator might be able to fight a divinity transformation stage cultivator, but the gap between him and a half-saint is too huge after all. Lotus Tathagata's face was filled with terror. If Senior Taichu is defeated, Earth will be finished this time. Many people cried out in panic in their hearts. Some of the Earth natives who were inclined to surrender mocked him in their hearts. Kong Taichu, you've seen more of the vast sea of stars than we have. You should know better how powerful the extraterrestrial cultivators are, but you still don't know when to stop. You deserve this tribulation. They looked forward to Jiang Tian's defeat. Ha, Kong Taichu, I didn't expect you to have such a day. The cultivators from other planets, such as Han Sheng and Luo Qin, who had been defeated by Jiang Tian, looked even more vicious. Don't just watch the show. The grand opportunity of Earth is right in front of you. Why don't you take it? Qin Pu chuckled and waved his hand. Yes, ancestral patriarch. The elites on the Star River Roll and the Zongzi of the divine sect behind him replied. They were the soul formation cultivators from the previous generation, or even the generation before that, the elites on the Star River Roll. They were more powerful than Han Ming and had more experience. They had already turned into beams of light and flew towards Earth on flying ships, battleships, or flying swords. With their speed, they would be able to reach Earth in half a day. Qin Pu snickered and said, Kong Taichu, there isn't a single soul formation cultivator on Earth, right? You fought with your sword, risked your own life and stopped thousands of troops on your own because you wanted to protect Earth, right? It's difficult for you to achieve great things. You should know that immortal cultivators should only have the great Tao in their hearts and not be bound by the 7 emotions and 6 desires. However, you're full of obsession and shackles. You're thinking about your hometown and your family. How can you reach the void return realm and even transcend the tribulation to become an immortal? However, you can only watch them massacre Earth and there's nothing you can do. You can only cry and cry. This old man is very happy to see that. Do you think there's only one divine lord on earth? You're wrong. Zhao Xueqing pulled out her broken sword and rushed out with the Soul Formation Corps generals to stop the elites. Soon, the battle was in a stalemate. It's time for the final battle. With the cultivators of the Tianqing school here, the cultivators from other planets won't be able to set foot on Earth again. On the other hand, the cultivators on Earth, Jiang Changing, Lian Sheng and Sidu Shao, took off on space battleships and rushed to the battlefield to meet the enemy. Mistress, let me help you. Even Tang Linglong, who had achieved initial success in cultivating the Li Fire immortal body and successfully formed her nascent soul, joined forces with the Golden Rock Temple's Plum Girl Tathagata and led an army of 100,000 cultivators out of West Earth on starships, charging toward the battlefield. Let's fight. The Tai Chu Sr. once fought to protect Star World. Today, it's time for us to repay him. In the Stellar Sky world, Ding Lai also roared and led his troops into battle. He led Ding Lingdang, Jiang Yunhe, and other cultivators into the starry sky on crystal ships or magical treasures. At this moment, all the cultivators above the golden core level in the many worlds of the solar system went all out. They weren't afraid of death even if they were like mantises trying to stop a chariot. Some messages even showed that the heavenly generals of the ancient heavenly courts in the ruins of deities were also on their way to help and would arrive on the battlefield on Earth in 3 days. This was an unprecedented battle. Under the vast sky, many crystal battleships broke through space and appeared thousands of miles away in a second. Many ancient chariots crossed the sky like a torrent of steel. The sound of ancient horns resounded in the world. All the cultivation sects in the solar system were mobilized to fight the enemy from other planets. Everyone knew that without the skin, the hair wouldn't be able to attach itself to it. Earth was now the sacred cultivation ground of the solar system. Once it was occupied by the cultivators from other planets, their world would be overturned in the blink of an eye. I heard that Jiang Taichu has only risen to power for a mere 10 years, but the forces under him are truly as united as an iron plate. Seeing this, many cultivators from other planets exclaimed. No matter how strong they were, they couldn't help but admire the cultivation sects of the solar system for their fearlessness. But Jiang Tian knew that even if Zhao Xueqing and the others could stop them for a while, they wouldn't be able to hold on for long. The most important thing right now was to take care of the 4 quasi-saints so that the other factions would collapse on their own. At this moment, Jiang Tian was no longer looking at Earth. Instead, he turned around and stared coldly at Qin Pu and the other sages-to-be, as if an ancient god was looking down at ants. He said coldly, "I don't care if you're my enemy, but you shouldn't have attacked Earth. That's my home. My parents, my daughter and countless friends are there. You've touched my bottom line." Chapter 1789. Ha, reverse scale? Kong Taichu, you ignorant kid. Do you really think you're a true dragon? Fu Songhai sneered. So what if you're a true dragon? You're weak and vulnerable after all. You're facing 4 pre-saints. Today we're going to take off your scales and skin you to see how strong you are. He suddenly raised the large red wine gourd casually, and a vast divine radiance gushed out from the gourd's mouth. Terrifying energy ripples directly traversed 1,000 miles, tearing through space, and surged toward Jiang Tian like raging waves. It was also a sacred weapon, but the power it released in his hands was more than 10 times or 100 times greater than that of the elites like Han Ming. Even though Jiang Tian had the cauldron of myriad origin above his head and activated countless chaotic air currents to protect him, he was still pushed back 100 miles. Little kid, you'd better kneel and surrender. Otherwise, your disciples and even the entire earth won't be safe. By then, it'll be too late for you to beg for mercy. Then, Elder Qin Huang from the Feiyang sect also attacked and slapped casually. That attack compressed the air within a few hundred miles into a piece of paper. Countless meteorites, pieces of space aircraft and lost Dao soldiers and Dharma treasures were crushed into powder and smoke. A powerful energy swept across the sky and shook the star ocean. The soul formation cultivators like Han Sheng and Luo Chen, who were watching from afar, were terrified. Even though Earth was a few 100,000 miles away, it was still affected, and there were suddenly terrifying storms and earthquakes and other disasters. Countless natives and mortal cultivators on Earth trembled in fear, as if an ancient god had risen to the sky and was about to level the Earth. Jiang Tian's hand met the attack, but he was pushed back dozens of miles. He felt something sweet in his throat and spurted out blood. His face turned pale and his energy dropped. At that moment, countless senior cultivators in the entire solar system, such as Ding Lai, Lian Sheng and Luo Mei Tathagata, were terrified. The strength of a half-step saint was far beyond their imagination. They felt as if they were tiny ants facing a ferocious tiger or a giant elephant. It made them feel uneasy and scared out of their wits. Half-saints, or sage-to-be, had yet to truly return to the void. They were between the divine transformation stage and the void return stage and could not truly dominate the universe and be invincible. They were not real saints, but they were still like real dragons in the sky. They could merge with the heaven and earth at any time and receive the support of the power of any part of the heaven and earth. This was the biggest difference between them and the semi-god realm cultivators. Although they were all supported by the status of the world, the divine lords of the divinity transformation realm were only limited to their own territory. They had to go through hundreds of years of refinement and integration. Even someone as talented as Han Ming had only mastered the laws and the great path after 2 years of refinement at the gate of Earth, gaining the recognition of the world. However, half-step return to void stage cultivators were completely different. The laws and great Tao that they comprehended and controlled were of a higher level. They were closer to the great Tao of truth and were more universal. When they arrived at any place or region, half of the gods could instantly entrust themselves to the void and obtain the recognition of heaven and earth, merging seamlessly. Therefore, wherever they were, they could mobilize the power of heaven and earth and attract the power of the laws and the great path. For example, if Han Ming fought with a half-saint, that half-saint could even instantly deprive him of the status of heaven and earth, taking over his place and becoming the master of this world. When the strength of the two sides decreased, the half-saint would instantly gain the upper hand and crush ordinary semi-god realm cultivators as easily as killing chickens and dogs. God has taken pity on him. He is a rare talent, but you have beaten him so badly. This is not good. Fairy Furong had a peerlessly beautiful appearance and peerless celestial bearing. Her red lips lightly opened as she spoke in a delicate voice, and she wanted to break down Jiang Tian's battle intent. Little kid, listen to me. As long as you're willing to surrender, we'll absolutely not refine your flesh and blood. You can be my follower and gigolo. I will love you dearly. Ha, Furong Fairy, you are really a good-looking dog. You don't like old men like us, but you like handsome young men. Elder Qing Huang teased. Fu Songhai also shook his head and sighed. It's not like I can't become handsome. Who doesn't know the art of creation? Sister Furong, why don't you think about it? Qin Pu also smiled and said, We are going to kill him? You old witch are even more vicious. I'm afraid you will use the art of absorption to suck this kid dry. They looked indifferent and relaxed, talking and laughing freely. They didn't take Jiang Tian seriously at all. Although Jiang Tian was powerful and could crush many semi-god realm cultivators, he was nothing in the eyes of these half-grand cultivators who had lived for tens of thousands of years and experienced countless storms. Jiang Tian might not be a match for them in a one-on-one fight. If the four of them worked together, Jiang Tian would definitely not be able to turn the tables. Although they looked relaxed, they didn't show any mercy. 4 vast waves of Dharma laws firmly locked onto Jiang Tian. They attacked and defended at the same time, not giving Jiang Tian a chance to sneak an attack. Jiang Tian wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and said coldly, Fine. I wanted to save this trump card for the mastermind behind planet extermination 100,000 years ago and the supreme grand cultivators in the central galaxy or even heaven. But since you want to die, I'll show you the real power of a divine-grade nascent soul cultivator. A divine-grade nascent soul? Is there really a divine-grade nascent soul cultivator in this world? Isn't the most powerful one at the deity level? Farong Fairy looked suspicious. Qin Pu seemed to have suddenly thought of something terrifying. He became serious and said, "A divine-grade nascent soul? The child of a true god? How is that possible?" At this moment, a terrifying change had already occurred to Jiang Tian. The powers of the divine infant, divine law, divine body, and demon god of suppression's soul in his body suddenly contracted and fused together. Immediately, strands of resplendent chaotic qi revolved around him like divine light. At that moment, Jiang Tian stepped on the sky, as if an ancient god had come to the world. He was a real god born from nature, not a god in the human world like the soul formation divine lords and divine lords. Boundless divine might surged out, and it wasn't enough to fill up the extraterritorial battlefield within a radius of 1,000 miles. It continued to expand, and the terrifying power shook the galaxy and covered the sun and moon. It instantly transcended the heaven and earth, and shot straight up into the 9 heavens. It was as if the entire galaxy couldn't withstand his might. The 4 half-saints were terrified and their souls trembled. How powerful was Jiang Tian at the moment? In fact, even Jiang Tian didn't know. He had never seen a divine-grade nascent soul in the human world in his previous life. However, if a divine-grade nascent soul cultivator was as powerful as a nascent soul cultivator born from nature, it would be extremely terrifying. There was an old legend that the entire cultivation civilization was created by gods imitating the divine powers of the ancient gods. If the nascent soul cultivators in the divine realm were true dragons, those in the deity realm were Qilins and flood dragons, while those in the cultivation world were only giant pythons and poisonous snakes. Although the soul formation cultivators and half-saints in the cultivation world were powerful, their nature hadn't changed. They could only be giant pythons and strange snakes. And Jiang Tian was a true dragon of the 9 heavens. Although he was a relatively weak true dragon, he was still able to summon the wind and rain, control lightning, and soar into the sky. And the distance between them and Jiang Tian was still 108,000 miles. It was as if there was a heavenly moat separating them. Boom! When the power of the divine souls, divine bodies and divine laws gathered together, countless beams of light burst out in the universe. Jiang Tian stood in the sky with his hands behind his back and his robe fluttered, shaking the entire sky. The magnificent space city, which was at least 10,000 miles away, was slightly shaken. Countless people were terrified and their souls were about to leave their bodies. If Hanch Divine Prince hadn't left the edge of the solar system and went straight into the star ocean and the signal hadn't been cut off, he wouldn't have said that Jiang Tian would be defeated by those great saints. What kind of power is that? Why do I feel that it's even more vast and condensed than the Dharma laws of the half-saints? The 4 pre-saints were also shocked. That was the first time they looked at Jiang Tian. The teasing, mocking, and lazy smiles on their faces suddenly disappeared. They became unprecedentedly solemn and vigilant. They knew that Jiang Tian was a nascent soul cultivator, but the energy he unleashed and the Dharma laws and Grand Tao he triggered were even more terrifying than those of a peak-stage sacred soul formation cultivator. They were comparable to a half-saint. They even felt the terrifying energy that they could only feel when facing a great saint. Although Jiang Tian's energy was obviously not that of a saint, it was like a child facing an adult. They felt like lowly caterpillars facing a naughty child, but that naughty child definitely had the power to crush them with one punch. Then, Jiang Tian waved his right hand and the heavenly sword appeared in his hand. His energy surged again. Is he a divine-grade nascent soul cultivator? But how is that possible? Staring at Jiang Tian, Qin Pu's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Finally, he voiced out his conjecture with a trembling voice. The spirit qi in this world has been declining and it's only been 5 years since its recovery. It's impossible for a high-grade nascent soul cultivator to form. When it recovered, this kid went straight to the South Gate planet region, which is also a remote place. How could he form a divine-grade nascent soul? Chapter 1790. Only nascent soul cultivators above the 9th grade were valued by the Beidou planet region. Even though there were many sects and families in the entire Beidou planet and there were countless cultivators, sacred-grade nascent soul cultivators were extremely rare. Cultivators like Han Ming who were ranked on the Star River roll and had a chance to inherit the power of a peerless divine sect. Not to mention the deity-grade and divine-grade ones. There was only one deity-grade nascent soul cultivator in the entire Beidou planet region, among the 7 stars and thousands of planets with life, 200,000 years ago. He was taken away by a supreme grand cultivator of the central galaxy and cultivated in an immortal sacred ground, where he had a chance to become a void-returned supreme saint or even a Tao reunion perfected immortal. As for a divine-grade nascent soul cultivator, there had never been one in the history of the Beidou planet region. Not even the central galaxy had a record of one. Rumor had it that a divine-grade nascent soul cultivator had a high chance of reaching the void return, Tao reunion, and even tribulation to become a deity. That was the true dragon of the 9 realms. In the eyes of Qin Pu and the others, the solar system was like a fallen noble family that had lost its glory. Compared to the Big Dipper constellation, which was as vast as a river, or the central galaxy, which was as vast as an ocean, this was just a small pond or a small sewer. If it weren't for the recovery of spirit chi and the ancient treasures might have been exposed, they wouldn't have even looked at it. But now, in this small pond and small sewer, there was a real dragon baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. Even if it was just a cub, how could they not be shocked? He has the spirit chi of planet destruction and he might have the inheritance of the ancient heavenly courts in the ruins of deity. Let's capture him together and interrogate him about the cultivation arts of this nascent soul cultivator. But I don't think it's a real divine-grade nascent soul cultivator. Furong Fairy was tempted and her eyes became greedy. Even if he's really a divine-grade nascent soul cultivator, he's still weak. We can definitely take him down together. Fu Songhai was full of killing intent. He's evil and the sword in his hand is much more powerful than a sacred weapon. Don't show any mercy, or he'll turn the tables. Furong Fairy also looked serious. She had apparently been through thousands of battles and knew that a lion would do its best to catch a rabbit. Although Han Ming, Qin Yu, and Gui Yufan are a little reckless in their actions, they've run into a great opportunity this time. If it is really a divine-grade nascent soul stage cultivator, we can devour it as food. I'm afraid that we will be able to enter the great saint stage directly. Old man Qin Huang said sinisterly. As soon as his voice fell, he brazenly attacked, his giant axe chopping down at Jiang Tian. Suddenly, the mountain-like amount of laws condensed into a giant axe phantom. The terrifying laws could tear everything apart. The entire space was like a piece of paper, completely collapsing. Clang! Fu Songhai raised his red wine gourd again. Suddenly, a terrifying devouring power swept towards Jiang Tian, trying to suck Jiang Tian into it. The devouring gourd was a saint weapon in the first place. He had even absorbed a small planet into it and refined it into an offensive Dharma treasure. Go! Furong Fairy, the old saintess of the Banishing Immortals Hall, also showed no mercy. She waved her hand and a saint weapon called the Moon Shroud appeared in her hand, whipping it towards Jiang Tian. Starlight spread out from it, as if it were formed by a galaxy, entangling Jiang Tian. In the end, Qin Pu made a move as well. He withdrew a withered branch that was coiled up like a dragon, and he swung it at Jiang Tian. Instantly, numerous laws that were like rivers of stars poured down, and they were like raging waves beating against the shore as they suppressed Jiang Tian. At that moment, the 4 demi-saints attacked Jiang Tian together. They were serious and didn't show any mercy. Moreover, all of them were using saint weapons, which had the power to destroy heaven and earth, increasing the effect of their attacks by 10 times. The galaxy trembled violently under their attacks. Even Earth before the recovery of spirit chi would have collapsed if it had been hit by such an attack. However, Jiang Tian's face was extremely indifferent. Rise! His divine body, divine laws and the power of his divine soul poured into the heaven-severing sword like a river. At that moment, the sword, which used to be simple and dull, also let out an extremely bright and dazzling light, as if there were many suns in the sky, extremely dazzling. The next moment, Jiang Tian picked up the sword as if it was extremely simple and slashed out. Sky Splitter! The sword was filled with the chaotic laws that were like the Big Bang that created the universe, but it used the Sky Splitter of the Kunpeng divine law, which had been merged into sword will and sword energy. At this moment, the entire starry sea was forcefully split apart by Jiang Tian's sword. Colorful chaotic air currents and bright chaotic divine laws turned into a chaotic sword aura that was 10,000 feet long. It was like a sword in the hands of an ancient god, which could tear the sky and cut the galaxy. Arg! The shadow of Elder Qing Huang's giant axe couldn't withstand the sword energy of the Sky Splitter and exploded inch by inch at that moment. The endless, vast, and surging pure nomological laws began to collapse in large patches, like a hemp rope that had turned into a tangled mess and was utterly defeated. In the end, the chaotic laws flew into the sky like a dragon and entangled the giant axe, breaking the inferior grade's sacred weapon. Elder Qing Huang was even pushed back a few hundred miles. His vast precepts were crushed and he suffered a backlash. His vitality was greatly damaged. His 50,000 years of cultivation was destroyed by Jiang Tian's sword, and he fell directly from the half-saint realm to the peak of the divine transformation realm. How is that possible? How can the power of his sword be so strong? Elder Qing Huang was flustered and exasperated. He glared at Jiang Tian. His heart was filled with shock and resentment. He shouted loudly, "His magical weapon's grade is too high. He cannot use it too many times. Hurry up and kill him while he's weak." Bush, 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 bush. Fu Songhai's expression was as cold as iron. He kept chanting spells and stepping forward. The power of the law of devouring from the red wine gourd arrived. This sacred weapon contained the law of devouring, which was extremely terrifying. It could instantly tear apart a soul formation grand cultivator, turning him into a rain of blood and clouds. It could even devour a god and his divine soul quickly. However, the myriad origin cauldron's power had already been pushed to the limit by Jiang Tian. Strands of primal chaos law hung down like silk, forming a barrier that enveloped Jiang Tian. The wine gourd's law of devouring only caused the barrier to ripple slightly, but it did not break through. As for Qin Pu's withered branch and Fairy Furong's moon ribbon, after their continuous attacks, they were only able to force Jiang Tian and the giant cauldron back by around 1 mile. In the vast space battlefield, this distance was practically negligible. At that moment, the countless cultivators on the space battlefield were all shocked and couldn't believe it. They all widened their eyes and thought they had seen it wrong, as if they had fallen into a nightmare. Jiang Tian's attack had destroyed Elder Qing Huang's law attack, which made his power drop by a level. And yet, Jiang Tian didn't seem to be injured at all when the 3 half-saints attacked Jiang Tian with all their might. That was terrifying. It meant that the 4 half-saints couldn't do anything to Jiang Tian in a short time, but Jiang Tian could injure or even kill them. Jiang Tian stood proudly in the sky, surrounded by the chaotic laws. The bright chaotic airflow was like a galaxy, as if a saint had arrived. "He's too powerful. He's too powerful. I thought Han Ming, Gui Yufan, and Qin Yu were the most powerful cultivators below the half-saints. But now, it seems that Kong Teichu is the real half-saint. No, he's invincible below the saints. I heard that his lifespan is only 30 to 40 Earth years. How did he do that?" At that moment, Han Xing, Luo Chen, and the other elites from other planets sighed. "That's terrifying. He's only a nascent soul cultivator, but he's able to fight against a half-saint. What kind of nascent soul cultivator is he? How can there be such a powerful nascent soul cultivator in the universe?" Many soul formation grand cultivators exclaimed. The next second, Jiang Tian moved. The 9 Dharma laws merged into one and turned into the chaotic laws, which then turned into the Kunpeng laws. That was equivalent to 9 times the original Kunpeng divine law. He turned into an extremely handsome Kunpeng shadow with giant wings, feathers like peerless heavenly blades and claws like heavenly hooks. The next second, he flashed across the sky and turned into a beam of light, disappearing on the spot. At that moment, the four half-saints looked extremely pale. They looked as if they had seen a ferocious beast from the ancient universe. What was the most terrifying? All the known powers, no matter how powerful they were, weren't the most terrifying. The most terrifying thing was the unknown power, the power that couldn't be controlled or even understood. At that moment, Jiang Tian gave them the feeling that they couldn't control, understand, or defeat him. Chapter 1791. Everyone felt as if Jiang Tian had disappeared into thin air. There were no energy waves, no space waves, and no traces. He just disappeared into thin air. In fact, Jiang Tian was still splitting the space, but he was so fast that the space immediately closed after passing through. The time was so short that the space waves couldn't be detected at all. The next moment, Jiang Tian appeared in front of Qin Pu, who was a few hundred miles away at an unbelievable angle. He had already turned into a human and slashed down without saying anything. Yin-yang splitting. The sword light twisted and turned like the dividing line of the yin and yang fish in the Taiji diagram. It was very smooth and beautiful, looking especially harmonious and beautiful. However, its speed was extremely fast, and its killing intent was peerless. It was extremely sharp and unstoppable. It was as if the 9 heavens and 10 earths, as well as all living things, would be slashed apart with a single slash. What? At this moment, Qin Pu's eyes were wide open. His face was filled with astonishment. The astonishment and fear in his eyes were extremely intense. He had never thought that Jiang Tian would appear there and be so fast. He couldn't even raise the withered branch-like sacred weapon in his hand in time, so he could only summon all kinds of Dharma laws to resist. As the sword slashed, the space was divided into light and darkness. Even the Dharma laws were split under his control. A terrifying space crack went from top to bottom and stretched for 1,000 miles. That sword mark started from the tip of Jiang Tian's sword and cut Qin Pu's body, divine treasures and deities, then meandered into the endless depths of the void. Many nascent soul stage cultivators and divinity transformation stage cultivators nearby were cut into 2 halves before they could even scream. The other 3 demi-saints were also affected by the yin-yang separation sword radiance. All of them were injured and looked horrified. A few sacred weapons even had their Dao inscriptions destroyed. They were severely damaged and their light dimmed. The weapon spirits wailed in fear and even tried to escape from their masters. He had killed a half-saint with 1 slash. A bloodline appeared on Qin Pu's forehead. His eyes trembled and his deities roared. His wounds wriggled quickly and all kinds of Dharma laws attacked and destroyed the chaotic Dharma laws that Jiang Tian had slashed out. They healed and cracked at times. Half of the gods who had entrusted themselves to the void continued to absorb and devour the power of laws from the heavens and the earth, trying to forcefully repair their physical bodies. However, in the end, the primal chaos divine law drilled into the ground like a poisonous dragon. It affected, heavily injured, and strangled his god. He couldn't hold on any longer and was directly split into 2. Only his godly soul was left. He turned pale with fright and ran outside. However, he immediately let out a miserable howl and was strangled by the aftershock of the sword light. Fuck, is this guy still human? At this moment, the eyes of countless cultivators nearly popped out of their sockets. Jiang Tian's sword attack was too terrifying. It had killed Qin Pu and seriously injured the other 3 semi-sage experts. Retreat quickly. Without another word, Fairy Furong immediately waved her sleeve and retreated 500 kilometers away like a graceful swan. This brat actually killed Brother Qin. Holding the big red wine gourd, Fu Songhai's eyes bulged. He wanted to use the world he had refined inside the gourd to crush Jiang Tian. However, as she reminded him, he hurriedly retreated. Originally, there were several real stars hidden in his gourd, which were the power of several worlds. He had just used the devouring power, but he hadn't used the more terrifying crushing power of the world of stars. He thought that once he used it, there was at least a 50% chance that he would crush Jiang Tian. However, what if? If he couldn't kill Jiang Tian, he and Jiang Tian were about the same strength. It was very likely that he would be killed by Jiang Tian's sword. Therefore, after Fairy Furong's reminder, this brat is too terrifying. As for Elder Qing Huang, because his cultivation had fallen, he was most afraid of Jiang Tian. However, he had already retreated at the first moment. His face was pale with fright, and his majestic body was trembling slightly. Qin Pu was a quasi-sage. The Taishang elders of the most powerful holy clans were usually gods who resided in the void. They could continuously absorb the power of precepts from the heavens and earth, turning them into attacks or defenses, or even repairing their bodies. They were terrifying existences that were almost immortal and indestructible. However, they were still killed by Jiang Tian's sword. This brat's sword and stone cauldron are too powerful. Deity material. What kind of luck did he have to get this treasure? Elder Qing Huang stared at the sword in Jiang Tian's hand. His eyes were bloodshot with jealousy. The power of this kind of deity weapon was too terrifying. Compared to it, the sacred weapons in their hands were like fire sticks. They were extremely useless. No matter what, we can't take him down. Fairy Furong's face turned pale as she whispered. The power that Jiang Tian had unleashed was far beyond their imagination. They had traveled across the Star Ocean and the Milky Way. They had seen all kinds of talents, but they had never seen someone as powerful as Jiang Tian. Of course, half of the credit for this was due to Jiang Tian's stone cauldron and absolute heaven sword. However, Jiang Tian's powerful divine body that was almost indestructible and as fast as a rock was enough to make them feel terrified. Although they had all survived, they were all injured and stained with blood. Elder Qing Huang's cultivation had also fallen. They were no longer as strong as when they first arrived. How long could they resist Jiang Tian? Thinking of this, they just wanted to run away. Divine princes and cultivators of the Beidou sect who are attacking Earth, retreat. Thinking of this, Fu Songhai shouted even louder, using his divine sense to transmit his voice. The core of the primordial tree. After Jiang Tian killed Qin Pu, he directly snatched the withered branch away. He could not help rejoicing. He could give this treasure to Huang Linger. But it was strange that he hadn't seen this infatuated girl since he returned. Where did she go? She didn't have to be so focused even if she was cultivating. Fellow Taoist Grand Primordium, we failed to recognize the true dragon and offended you. If you have time to come to the Beidou sect in the future, I'll be sure to welcome you as a distinguished guest. Fairy Furong's fairy-like appearance was moving and captivating. Her charming voice was soft and her smile was like a flower. She no longer dared to oppose Jiang Tian and wanted to dissolve Jiang Tian's killing intent. She didn't feel safe at all, even though she had the sacred weapon, the Shuyue ribbon, in her hand. She believed that she would die under her slash. Even a sacred weapon wouldn't be able to resist it. Elder Qing Huang was even more frightened. After all, his cultivation level had fallen. Without saying a word, he hurriedly flew deep into the universe with the sky-opening axe, like a stray dog. It's too late. According to your rules, you should kneel in front of Earth for 10,000 years and beg for forgiveness. Running away like that, it's very insincere of you to admit your mistake. Jiang Tian chuckled. Boom! As he spoke, he raised his hand and pointed with a finger. The sea-calming ice god law spanned across the sky and froze Elder Qing Huang in place like a rainbow of ice crystals. Then, Jiang Tian's figure flashed, and he slapped down with his palm. The space within 100 miles was compressed into negative space, turning Elder Qing Huang into dust. Only the giant axe was left as it shot into the depths of the universe. Immediately after, Jiang Tian activated the absolute heaven sword again without saying a word. He moved with the sword, and the sword drew a huge arc and slashed out. Open the chaos! The divine law of the chaos was slashed with the sword intent and sword aura. It was as if an ancient god was wielding a giant axe, splitting the chaos and creating a world. Its power was extremely terrifying. In a blink, the entire space battlefield was turned upside down, the world collapsed and the universe battleships and even the space fortresses were turned into powder under the slash. No! Fu Songhai and Fairy Furong yelled. But it was useless. The two of them were split in half by Jiang Tian's slash. At that moment, the entire star ocean was in silence. Countless cultivators from other planets trembled and sat on the ground in fear. Chapter 1792. Not only did the attack kill the two demi-saints, but it also carried the chaos law and the sword aura. The impact was so wide that it cut through countless battleships, two space fortresses, and even a space city behind the two demi-saints. The space city was like a fallen planet, and an earth-shattering explosion occurred. In the sky, energy storms surged and broken limbs were everywhere. Blood dyed the sky red, and the wreckage of the battleships with a metallic luster enveloped the battlefield. That huge sword mark was like a black rainbow piercing through the sun. It extended for thousands of miles in front of Jiang Tian. It was like a black abyss that cut through heaven and earth. How is that possible? All the spectating cultivators, whether it was the cultivators from outer space on the battlefield, the natives of Earth, or the reinforcements who had rushed over from the depths of the dimensional world, all witnessed this terrifying scene in a daze, as if they were watching a fantasy story. More than half of the Alliance army, which had come with a ferocious aura and seemed capable of engulfing the entire solar system, had been slain by Jiang Tian with a single slash of his sword. What was even more terrifying was that the four demi-saints, who were like true immortals standing high above the world, had been killed by Jiang Tian. It should be noted that they were the trump cards of the most powerful holy clans. Their strength was unparalleled in the Star Sea, and they were all top bosses in the Big Dipper starfield. And yet, they still couldn't stop Jiang Tian's slash even after activating their sacred weapons. Who the hell is he? How can he be so sharp? The patriarch of the Saint Era sword sect, Luo Chen, mumbled to himself with fear in his eyes. How can this be? A divine transformation realm elder trembled and said softly. Not only him, all the cultivators from other planets didn't want to believe it. The four half-saints were all terrifying figures who stood above the Beidou planet region and dominated the star ocean. Other than the sect masters and the reckless ancestral masters, there weren't many people in the Beidou planet who could suppress them. And yet, they still couldn't withstand the power of Jiang Tian's sword. Is he really a banished immortal from the nine heavens? Or is he the reincarnation of an immortal? Even the divine princes who had been brought by Qin Pu and the other quasi-saints to attack Earth were dumbfounded. They even forgot to fight with Zhao Xueqing and the others and shouted with trembling voices. Other than that, there was really no other explanation for Jiang Tian's strength. Jiang Tian was in the middle stage of the nascent soul stage, but his body, nascent soul stage, divine powers, and Dharma laws were all extremely tough. The laws he grasped were so vast, powerful, and condensed that it even surpassed the half-saint realm, and its grade was unimaginably high. The Dharma laws those half-saints controlled were already the most powerful in the star ocean. They were much more powerful than normal sacred-grade soul formation cultivators and had even mastered part of the Grand Tao. And yet, they were vulnerable in front of Jiang Tian. All kinds of divine abilities were powerless in front of Jiang Tian, just like a weak baby. This man is definitely not from Earth. He's not even from the Milky Way. He's either from the nine heavens deity realm or from the outer region. That's the real outer region, the outer region of the entire Milky Way. That's the central galaxy. A divine prince said, "The central galaxy?" Everyone around was terrified. That was a legendary place, the home of legends, the center of the entire universe, where countless elites gathered. Soul formation grand cultivators and elites who could be called ancestral patriarchs in the Milky Way weren't everywhere in the central galaxy, but they weren't rare either. There were also countless sacred grounds and large sects that had been established for millions or even tens of millions of years. Could Jiang Tian have come from such a place? For the Big Dipper galaxy at the edge of the universe, or even the entire vast Milky Way, the central galaxy was almost like the legendary realm of deities. Many people had never left the Milky Way in their entire lives. Take the Big Dipper planet region for example. In the past 200,000 years, there had only been one deity-grade nascent soul cultivator, who had been taken away by a giant from the central galaxy. Billions of other cultivators might not even have the chance to enter the central galaxy, even if they became saints. Most of the supreme saints who had entered the central galaxy in history had sneaked in. In the universe, the central galaxy was as different from the abandoned planet region and the wasteland planet region as the international metropolises of developed countries on Earth and the primitive tribes in Africa. Run! At this moment, many soul formation elites and ancestral disciples of the divine sex who were attacking Earth were terrified and wanted to retreat at the same time. Han Sheng, who was watching from the outer region, was even faster. He immediately drove a space fortress and flew deep into the sky without saying a word. After Jiang Tian killed 4 half-saints in a row with a sword, Han Sheng knew that the Big Dipper planet region had no hope of attacking Earth. It wasn't that nobody in the Big Dipper planet region was a match for Jiang Tian, but even if there were, nobody would take the risk easily. As for revenge, that didn't exist in the eyes of the disciples of the large sects in the Star Ocean. Even if they reached the nascent soul level, it would be easy for them to steal someone else's body, change their soul, or rebuild their body, not to mention the soul formation level. So, real cultivators didn't care much about blood ties. Especially when they weren't families, but sections. A sect was not an organization based on bloodline, but a collection of interests. The rules of conduct would also be based on interests. It was rational to the extreme, but also cold to the extreme. Only the current sect master of the Beihan sect was his and Han Ming's ancestor, but the other elders weren't. The ancestral disciples like Gui Yufan had no blood ties with the sect master. So, the senior members of the divine sects would consider interests in the future. There was a great opportunity for immortals on Earth, but the death of Han Cheng, the 4 Zongzis, and the 4 quasi-saints made people wonder if this opportunity still existed, and if it had been completely taken over by Jiang Taichu. Would it make sense to come to Earth again? Would they risk the death of a half-saint to invade Earth and face Kong Taichu directly for an imaginary opportunity? Why would those half-saints do that? Unless they had more powerful helpers, such as real Void Return Saints, they would have 100% confidence in winning. After he left, Luo Chen and the other ancestral disciples also ran away. So, this time, the coalition army of the divine sects led by Han Ming ran away without any illusions. They were full of despair and fear, so they ran as fast as they could. Clatter, clatter, clatter. But Jiang Tian didn't care about them. However, his gaze was like a sword as he stepped into the void and rushed toward Earth with his sword in hand. He's here. Hurry up. Change the trajectory of the fleet and go straight into the Star Ocean. The geniuses on the Starry River ranking were all scared out of their wits when they saw what had happened. My friend, why do you have to kill all of us? We're just following orders. There's nothing we can do. Yes, in fact, we abhor the invasion of Earth by Qin Pu and the other old men. We have tried to persuade them more than once, but the words of a lowly man carry little weight. After receiving Qin Pu's order, we were just idling around. As you can see, we didn't hurt your wife. As long as you spare us, we're willing to form a divine soul contract with you. We'll never do it again and we'll help you protect Earth. There were even some people who were trying to get on Jiang Tian's good side, trying to break down Jiang Tian's killing intent. However, their fleeing speed was not slow. They were elites on the Star River Roll thousands of years ago and were experienced soul formation cultivators. They might not be much more powerful than Han Ming and the others, but they were at least on par with them. However, there was still a big gap between them and Qin Pu and the other half-saints. Now that even a half-saint had died, they were no match for him. They also had tens of thousands of golden core cultivators, nascent soul cultivators and soul formation cultivators with them, and they were on many space battleships and fortresses. However, the aftermath of Jiang Tian's sword had even destroyed a planetary city. How could they resist the power of Jiang Tian's sword? But Jiang Tian didn't say anything. He just pushed the Kunpeng to the extreme and turned into a ray of light, shooting into the fleet of battleships that were invading Earth. Jiang Tian's sword aura was extremely sharp. Layers of space were easily pierced through like fragile paper in front of his incredibly powerful initial success deity body. Tens of thousands of kilometers were crossed by Jiang Tian with one step. "Qingya, get out of the way." As Jiang Tian shouted, he had already arrived at the fleet of battleships. Chapter 1793. Everyone back off. Zhao Xueqing's clone was thrilled. She smiled and said, "Honey, it's your turn." Boom. Jiang Tianhe bumped into 700 to 800 miles long warships, which looked like mountain-shaped dragons, were crushed right on the spot. The golden core cultivators on the battleships were like tofu under a hammer. Thousands of them couldn't withstand Jiang Tian's peerless power and exploded in the air. They were turned into blood mist along with the battleships. Even the nascent soul cultivators and soul formation cultivators couldn't withstand it. They were severely injured and screamed. But that wasn't the end. Jiang Tian slashed with the heavenly obliterating sword in his hand. The sword swept across the sky and slashed dozens of nascent soul cultivators and soul formation cultivators. The Dharma treasures on those nascent soul cultivators and soul formation cultivators were like paper. They couldn't even stop Jiang Tian for a second before they were split in half. Boom. The Big Dipper fleet, which had crossed layers of voids in high spirits and intended to conquer the Earth with ease, suffered heavy losses after just one collision. More than 100 nascent soul cultivators and soul formation cultivators died, including 2 former elites on the galaxy roll. "Run!" At that moment, screams and screams resounded in the sky. There were countless flags, nascent soul cultivators and soul formation cultivators. How arrogant! And yet, after Jiang Tian attacked, they were scared out of their wits. They bumped into each other and ran towards the deep space crazily. Clang, clang, clang. Jiang Tian attacked mercilessly. He swept the sky with his sword and punched with his fist. Wherever he went, the air exploded and Dharma laws were shattered. The air in 100-mile radius around him had turned into an ocean of light and chaotic air currents. Countless chains and pieces of the Grand Tao floated up and down, destroying everything. Lightning, vermilion bird flame, sea calming ice, azure dragon mystic water, winged dragon thick earth, and other lights intertwined and wreaked havoc in the air. Not to mention being hit, just being touched by the slightest bit of it would immediately kill those cultivators. Warships would explode and thousands of alien cultivators would fall at every moment. "Hurry up! Don't obstruct my path!" A soul formation grand cultivator yelled. He was so frightened that his soul almost left his body. Since he was blocked by the ships of the cultivators in front of him, he directly attacked and smashed a ship into pieces. Hundreds of cultivators on board were turned into powder. "Don't blame me." Some nascent soul cultivators even grabbed their partners to stop Jiang Tian, but it was useless. They were smashed into pieces by Jiang Tian, then burned into smoke by the Red Sparrow Fire Divine Law. "Senior Tai Chu, please don't kill me. To tell you the truth, I am a citizen of the ruins of immortality. In essence, I am a descendant of the ancient heavenly court. We are of the same race." Some nascent soul heavenly lords were so frightened by Jiang Tian that they knelt on the ground and begged for mercy. He wasn't lying. 3 years ago, when Luo Qin of the Saint Aerosword sect and the others passed by the ruins of immortality, he took some talented disciples from the barbarian worlds and the Wu Luo sect as servants. Strictly speaking, they were also the interstellar wanderers under Emperor Zhongli's command and descendants of the deity ground. They also wanted to invade Earth during the chaos, but they didn't expect to be defeated. At this moment, the entire army was in chaos, like a pot of boiling porridge. However, regardless of how they reacted, whether they resisted with their lives or knelt down to beg for mercy, Jiang Tian mercilessly killed his way over. Clang. Jiang Tian moved forward. His black hair fluttered like a waterfall and his face was as cold as iron. He walked like a kunpeng flying in the sky and a true dragon flying in the sky. He looked disdainful, as if he were the only dominator in the world. He slashed with his sword, like an ancient deity fiend harvesting the lives of others. Crack, crack. The sky cracked. Every time Jiang Tian slashed with the heavenly sword, it was powerful and invincible. Everything within a 1,000-mile radius was in chaos. Countless nascent soul cultivators and golden core cultivators fell like rain and ships were shattered into pieces. Nobody could fight back. In the end, the battlefield had almost become a land of death. It was like a primeval Azura battlefield that was filled with the aura of blood and iron. Severed limbs, flesh and blood surged through the sky like a tide, and the wreckage of ships floated in the air while flickering with a metallic sheen. Various remnant souls wailed sorrowfully as the aura of blood shot into the sky, and they grieved the heavens and the earth. Only the geniuses on the galaxy list had a chance to defend themselves and escape, but they were not in a good state either. They were all swept up by the Dharma laws. Their hair was disheveled, their faces were covered in dust, their bodies were stained with blood, their skin was torn, their armor was dim, and their swords were broken. Kong Teichu, you're the one who forced us to do this. Some soul formation elites were driven to desperation. They roared and chose to self-destruct. Their bodies and divine treasures let out beams of light, as if a sun had exploded in the sky. In the end, their divine treasures were burned and turned into beams of light, shooting towards Jiang Tian. At that moment, the sky collapsed and the earth cracked. The sun and the moon collapsed. Countless stars seemed to have fallen from the sky and the entire earth shook. But it was useless. The cauldron of creation was pushed to the extreme. Chaotic chi flowed down like rivers of stars. Its defense was so powerful that it wasn't affected at all. Not even the self-destruction of a sacred soul formation elite from the previous generation on the Star River Roll could do anything to Jiang Tian. The others were in complete despair. What was the point of fighting? Even if they weren't afraid of death, it would be worth it if they could injure their enemy severely. At least they could comfort themselves. But then, screw it. Where there's life, there's hope. Let's run. Don't worry about the battleships. In order to escape, they had to abandon the space warships with supplies and the cultivators who were supporting them. Riding their quasi-saint weapons, they turned into streaks of brightness and brushed past Earth at an unparalleled speed, trying to get out of here alive. Moreover, the army had already been slaughtered by Jiang Tian until only a few big cats and small cats remained, and the army was almost completely annihilated. You want to run? Jiang Tian chuckled. All of a sudden, he stepped into the sky and flew up to the sky. He stood above the battlefield and flicked his finger. The divine sword caught up with the 5 semigod realm cultivators in an instant. It drew a curve in the sky and disappeared like a bolt of lightning. He put the sword back into its sheath. Jiang Tian looked calm and stood with his hands behind his back. Rumble. The 5 soul formation elites paused for a moment. Then, shock, fear, desperation, and unwillingness appeared on their faces. The next second, they all exploded. With a single slash, the Galaxy List prodigy who had accompanied Qin Pu to attack Earth, Mo Jin. At that moment, the entire world went silent. Countless people could only stare at Jiang Tian, who was standing in the sky with his robe fluttering in the wind, dumbfounded. They witnessed his brilliance when he suppressed the entire star ocean. Many people's hearts trembled as a trace of understanding rose in their hearts. From that day on, no one in the entire solar system, the Southgate stars and the entire Milky Way would dare to provoke Jiang Tian, not even the divine sex. What was unparalleled in the world? That was unparalleled in the world. May 7, 2018. Kong Teichu, the leader of the Earth's Mythology Alliance, the principal of Tianqing School and the new heavenly emperor of the ruins of immortality, killed the coalition army of the 4 most powerful divine sects, 4 saints and 9 Star River elites. He defeated an army of 200,000 cultivators by himself. The entire Star Ocean was shocked when the news spread out. You're tuning in to the Wang Lin's Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.